I'd like to call the meeting to order. Please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thanks for coming, everyone. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Supervisor Moore.
Present.
Councilwoman McNamara.
Present.
Councilman Iacilli.
Present.
Councilman Pell.
Present.
All right, thank you. I move to adopt the minutes of the regular town board meeting from January 14th, 2025.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And I move to adopt the minutes of the special town board meeting from January 23rd, 2025.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, Madam Clerk, would you please read the communications?
We have received the communications in the office of the town clerk from the following: public notices from Suffolk County Soil and Water Conservation District, Town of East Hampton, public hearing notices, Town of Riverhead, notices of adoption, New York State Liquor Authority, 30-day advance notice to local municipality, a new application for 149 West Montauk Highway, Hampton Bays. Bid and request for proposals were received on January 22nd. For the bid for Lake Agawam South parking improvements for the trustees. And that concludes communications for this meeting's agenda.
Thank you. There are 6 walk-ons that I move to add to the agenda. The first is Town Board Resolution ID number 48803 to authorize the purchase of road salt, treated salt, and emergency standby road salt from New York State OGS contract with Atlantic Salt, Inc. The second is Town Board Resolution ID number 48811 to authorize the purchase of door and closer repairs with Eastern Door and Hardware, Inc. using the Suffolk County contract. The third is Town Board Resolution ID number 48827, a bond authorization of $100,000 for the design and construction of a new rifle range facility. The fourth is Town Board Resolution ID number 48833, which is the warrant number 2. The fifth is Town Board Resolution ID number 48836, which is a notice of public hearing for amendments to Chapter 123-39.3 entitled Battery Energy Storage Systems as it relates to building and electrical permit requirements. And the sixth walk-on is Town Board Resolution ID number 48837 to authorize a supervisor to execute any and all documents pertaining to the New York Cares Up Grant for Resiliency and Wellness Planning Grants for New York State Uniformed Personnel Organizations. So I move to add those to the agenda.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, thanks. That brings us to our public hearings. Madam Clerk, would you please read the notice for the first public hearing?
Certainly. Public hearing number 1, consider enacting Town Code Article 23 as it relates to the amortization of non-conforming sand mines that meet certain criteria.
Cindy.
Oh, I'm
Yes.
sorry. Public hearing number 1, let's try this again.
Try it again.
Chapter 261, to consider enforcement action at 138 Maggie Drive, East Quogue, Suffolk County Tax Map Number 473-689-251-56.
Good afternoon, members of the Town Board, Assistant Town Attorney Sean Cambridge. This is a pretty straightforward enforcement action. This is a property that is held by Deutsche Wells Foreclosure Management, Inc. The person who had lived here, I think, started out with good intentions and has a bunch of materials they intended to donate. But now these things are outside. I'll pass up the photographs to the board. You can see it's just an immense amount of furniture, clothing, patio furniture, things like that. I'll hand them up. It simply just needs to be cleaned up. It's a blight on the neighborhood at this point. It's an immense amount of simply going on.
So no demolition. It's not a house demolition. It's just a cleanup.
It's just the surrounding of the house outside. You'll see there's things like tools, bicycles, lawn furniture, mattresses, all things that have been out in inclement weather at this point.
Is this something where the homeowner has not complied with notices from the town to do so?
Correct, and the property owner is a bank at this point, and they have not cleaned it up, and so it's just a lot of material.
This was brought to my attention by residents in the neighborhood, and it's been an ongoing for a very, very long time. They believe the people that are living in the home are, at this point, going through an eviction process, or
I can't comment to that, that would be
maybe
a separate
hasn't even
action.
begun, but it's not the owner of the house that
It's in all
resides there.
likelihood, correct.
Did you say it's owned by the bank?
Yes, it has been foreclosed upon.
You need to come back though, because there's only one set given to me.
So it's an REO. But at this point,
And we do have a letter of support from the homeowners association.
yeah. And typically, is like Sean will say, once the bank, if the board does this, we give this notice to the bank that we're gonna do it unless they don't do it, they'll typically will, at this point, clean it up. You know, they don't wanna.
How long has it actually been in possession by the bank?
For quite a while, there have been several justice court actions that have not been successful. We've fined the bank. They've not yet cleaned anything. Typically, like Mr. Cook said, once they get this type of notice, they'll have a management company on retainer, and they will,
How long has it been?
I'm not sure exactly.
So we're talking years, months?
It's been, since we've brought prosecutions forward, so I'd say the better part of a 2-year period.
Okay, thank you.
That's something that the bank management company is not responding.
Right.
Happens quite often.
And I find they often do respond after the board authorizes an action like this.
Okay. Well, thank you for bringing this to our
Thank you.
attention.
Thanks.
The loans get sold from one bank to another, and sometimes it's hard to, pinpoint who's got it last, who's now holding the properties.
Mm-hmm. All right, then if this, let's see, I don't have any cards on this public hearing. Kevin, is there anyone online who wishes to speak to this issue? All right, so I move to close the public hearing.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Uh,
Is this on for adoption today?
It is.
Madam Clerk, would you please read the notice for the second public hearing?
Certainly. Public hearing number 2. To consider enacting Town Code Article 23 as it relates to the amortization of non-conforming sand mines that meet certain criteria within the town of Southampton.
Hello, everyone. Before we get started, we have received comments back from the ZBA and the Pine Barrens Commission, but we have not received comments back from the planning board yet. So I'd like to hold over this public hearing until February 25th meeting, but we will let people come up and make comments today. We'd like to hear from everyone.
And that'll be a night meeting.
Be a night meeting.
All right, the first card is from Peggy Gallagher. And after Peggy is Ron Paulson.
Hello again,
Hi.
and good afternoon. My name is Peggy Gallagher. I'm the president of the Noyak Civic Council. We're a community advocacy group that advocates for quality of life issues in Noyak on behalf of our members and the more than 3,200 Noyak households, and we've been doing that for over 70 years. I want to thank the board, the town attorney's office, and the town's code enforcement officers for their diligence over the past decade plus in enforcing the law against the sand mines and defending the lawsuits that the mines have brought against the town and us, its taxpayers. Just a little background, Sandlands Mine is now over 40 feet deeper and 3 acres wider than its properly issued permit, as measured against the DEC's current reclamation plan. They have mined more than 1 billion, that's with a B, pounds of sand beyond what is allowed by their 2013 permit. Following unanimous Court of Appeals ruling on February 9th, 2023, Sandland removed 2,351 tractor trailers of sand that was mined outside their legally permitted boundaries. Much of this illegally mined sand was trucked to their Wayne Scott location, and it's estimated that there are many months of sand stockpiled there. Over time, the owners of Sandlands have ignored over 300 tickets, 2 stop work orders, 3 injunctions, and the unanimous Court of Appeals ruling. The rulings of multiple governmental entities at the local and state level that represent us taxpayers were all ignored. Now we have arrived at the proposed amortization legislation. Obviously, this long-term conflict ultimately comes down to protecting our underground aquifer, the source of our drinking water, and enforcing our laws. The Noyak Civic Council says, enough is enough. The mine will try to tell you that this proposed legislation will have an adverse impact on the price of construction and an adverse impact on local traffic because of the need for locally mined sand. In my opinion, don't believe that. There are many states across this country without in-state sand mines. I wonder how builders in those states manage to operate. The dangers that the illegal expansion of sand mining poses to our environment, our drinking water, and our quality of life must be stopped. There are very good reasons why the permits issued and enforcement actions established sensible and reasonable limits. Additionally, these sand mines have been operating in residentially zoned areas in the town of Southampton. The proposed legislation would align our zoning laws with the goals of the town's comprehensive plan. We've heard for decades that these mines would
30
phase out
seconds.
and eventually close down. The mine owners and DEC repeatedly indicated they would close. Just one more permit extension, then another. They're at the end of mining. This will be their last permit. But then came the solid waste processing and mulch and construction debris operations. And the mines continue to expand towards and dangerously close to our drinking water aquifer. We applaud that the town has proposed this amortization legislation that will stop this hazardous
3
behavior.
minutes.
I speak for all members of the Noyak Civic Council, and I believe for many residents of Noyak, in urging you to pass this proposed amortization legislation. Thank you for your time and attention and for permitting me to speak. Thank you.
Next is Ron Paulson.
Good afternoon, board and supervisor. And just want to reaffirm some of the things that I talked about last time about, our concerns for these areas in, a very sensitive aquifer system here in Southampton. It's our pristine part of the aquifers that are our future and the future of our children. And just as a side note, yesterday my granddaughter, 6th grade, and her class were giving speeches at a local school. And I was listening to it last night. It was taped so the parents and grandparents could hear. And I was amazed how many of these young people were so environmentally conscious and worried about their air and water. And the one girl wants to invent a machine because she feels by 2050 we won't have anything to drink. That's how deep. And here's 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th graders speaking so truthfully about this. And that truthful part gets me a little annoyed because we did a study. I'm a hydrogeologist, work county and other agencies. And the study gets ridiculed as it wasn't accurate or whatever. But what amazes me is that New York State DEC put their own wells in, sampled their own wells in many of the same locations, and found many of the elevated metals and stresses that we found. And that data, it doesn't get included. They talk about they've never seen a bad sample around a sand mine. It's untrue. It's just not true. And there's a couple things that we don't really pay attention to. It's the stress that the aquifer gets. When you put or remove the buffering of the sand and you put stresses on the aquifer, the pH changes, the ORP changes, the dissolved oxygen changes. And all of those things are what liberates these metals. So it's not only the direct contaminants, it's a lot of the indirect ones that these types of uses can cause.
30 seconds.
So, and then the third point was, some of them are into the water table and they've never sampled that surface water. It doesn't get included. It's the groundwater that moves up. So my whole point is, I understand there's realistic needs, but they don't belong in these deep recharge groundwater protection areas. And I think this legislation will help be fair and control that and not say
3 minutes.
that it's the only way forward. But in these areas, we have to protect. And my granddaughter's classmates said it better than I probably can.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Right, the next speaker is Bob DeLuca.
Good afternoon, Supervisor Moore and Town Board members. My name is Bob DeLuca, and I serve as President of Group for the East End. And I'm here again to speak in support of the amortization of non-conforming sand mines in residential and sensitive groundwater zones, a position which we've held oddly since 1984. Today, I'd like to reflect just a little bit on some of the testimony that the board's taken previously. In particular, you've heard on many occasions from opponents that the sand mine operations do not resort to groundwater contamination, that there's no evidence that such contamination has ever occurred. Counsel for one of the mines basically said, people are going to be entitled to their own opinions, but not their own facts. And on this point, I want the board to just really consider, and maybe folks listening as well, mining's an industrial activity. For decades, DEC has largely ignored or lightly regulated the potential consequences of a wide variety of co-located industrial activities ranging from the creation and distribution of mulch and dirt, to the acceptance and processing of vegetative waste, to the acceptance and processing of construction and demolition waste, to the acceptance of liquid and septic waste. These are all well-documented sources of contamination, especially in areas of deep flow recharge. Second, by their nature, on Long Island, sand mines create deep holes directly into the Earth's surface that reduce the natural buffering and attenuation of contaminants provided by topsoils and forest floor microbes. These excavations also bring the water table closer and closer to the surface, where contaminants can more easily and rapidly reach the groundwater below. If you need a visual, you can just think about the recharge basins along the Long Island Expressway or someplace like that. These are specifically designed to remove water from the surface and rapidly accelerate its return to the underlying aquifer. And it's one reason why they are fenced and restricted from public access, so you don't contaminate the groundwater. Open pit mines, from a hydrologic standpoint, work the same way. And closer to home, the board is well aware of the 2018 study conducted by the County Health Department for the Sandland facility in Noyak. This report is every bit as scientific and fact-based as any other groundwater investigation undertaken in the region. And after 3 years of work and more than 100 test samples, including groundwater, surface water, vegetative matter, and soils, the county concluded the activities at the site had resulted in significant contamination of the underlying groundwater. Contaminants included a range of metals, nitrates, ammonia, and even gross alpha radiation. And those aren't the musings of some environmentalist, it's the Suffolk County Health Department. And by the way, when DEC later argued that the county got it wrong, that finding is in direct contradiction to the decades of research conducted by the County Health Department that DEC is only too happy to rely upon when it suits their needs. Finally, and most recently, counsel for the industry testified that recent testing at the Huntington Ready Mix site had shown no substantive contamination other than some iron, manganese, and salt, which he attributed to runoff from Sunrise Highway. After the hearing, I went and looked at the data, and I found quite a bit more than salt and iron. And I'm attaching this to this testimony so you can take a look as well. A review of the quarterly testing from September of 2024 showed that groundwater conditions at this facility were documented to have a wide array of semi-volatile organic compounds present, mostly at low levels, but in some cases exceeding New York State drinking water standards. And there was also iron and manganese above standards. Some of these compounds are hazardous or probable carcinogens. They are of an industrial origin, and they certainly do not occur naturally in groundwater. It's a red flag at a minimum, and you should have that inform your decision. At the end of the day, the town's action on these pre-existing non-conforming uses reflects consistency with decades of fact-based policy in Southampton town, as well as those embodied in numerous state and regional groundwater protection efforts. And for these reasons, and in the face of the facts, we once again urge your support for the board's efforts to pass this legislation, and we urge your swift and informed decision. And I thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Aram
You want
Tertunian.
to hand that in, Bob?
Yeah.
You have to be stamped in first.
I gave one.
No, you have to, still have to hand them in over
I'll
here.
hand them over.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Supervisor and Board. My name is Aram Tertunian from West Hampton Beach, New York. I come here only for myself, not anybody else. I want to just expand on the comments I gave at the first public hearing. And basically, it is that amortization is not appropriate at this stage. Amortization really should be, in my opinion, the last thing that the board goes after in dealing with any non-conforming use. What I did was I went through the town hamlet studies that were developed by the during the last update of the master plan, and I looked at those hamlets that had sand mines, and I looked at what the hamlet studies recommended in dealing with the sand mines, and those were basically incentive zoning and to look at things like recreation or tourism, recreational and passive or active, mixed land use, public golf courses, acquisition, an RV campground, and a proactive zoning designation, multifamily residential, dense housing cluster, workforce housing, something that this town is in desperate need of. The town has very effectively used incentive zoning in the past to get rid of non-conforming uses. And the object of incentive zoning is to make it mutually beneficial for the owner, for the community that surrounds the property, and for the town as a whole, because we all pay taxes when there's expensive litigation. So my point is that amortization is never mentioned in the town master plan, but all these other ideas are. So opening a dialogue and a negotiation with the sand mines in an incentive zoning, I think will be a far more beneficial approach. And if that is not successful, you always have the option to amortize. And I point out that one of the most successful incentives that the town has ever created is the innovative alternative low nitrogen systems. Now, we all know that the largest polluter of groundwater in the town are individual sanitary systems. But did the town go in and try to amortize sanitary systems? No. What they did was it created a grant program to incentivize property owners to build low nitrogen systems. And who followed suit? The county and the state. And that is probably one of the most successful environmental programs that the town has ever initiated. So I would say, find a similar approach here. And I hear a lot about sand land, and quite frankly, I can't even comment because I don't know anything about it. But if sand land is a problem, deal with sand land. But when we're dealing with overall uses in the town, incentive zoning to get rid of non-conforming uses is tried, true, successful. Thank you.
Okay, well, I don't have any more cards on this, but Kevin, is there anyone on Zoom?
Actually, we have met with a couple of sand mine owners, and talked to them.
Kevin, nobody's on Zoom.
One.
All right. What did he
He
say?
said one hand.
You just said this.
Never mind, sorry.
All right, so you said you wanted to move to,
Moved to hold it over until last meeting in February. Keep it open,
what's the date on it?
February 25th. It's a night time.
All right, need a second to move it over.
Second.
All in favor?
All right.
All right, thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Madam Clerk, would you please read the notice for the third public hearing?
Public hearing number 3, to consider historic landmark designation of the property recognized as Theophilus A. Browser Jr. Pine World Park, located at 59 Montauk Highway, West Hampton.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Supervisor and members of the Town Board. Kelly Doyle, Assistant Town Attorney. This is a public hearing to consider the historic landmark designation of the property located at 59 Montauk Highway, West Hampton. I do have an aerial photo of the property here. It is approximately 1.5 acres situated on Beaver Dam Creek here, and it's currently owned by Casa Basso Inc. And the Landmarks and Historic Districts Board did review the application, and they found that the site satisfies the criteria for landmark designation set forth in Town Code Section 330-321. The application was referred to the Planning Board, and the Planning Board fully supports the landmark designation, inclusive of the building. It's known as the Brower Castle, if I'm saying that correctly. Julie Green can correct me. And also there are several sculptures on the property, so the planning board also would like those included in the landmark designation. But it would be the entire site that would be included. And the name of this proposed landmark would be the Theophilus A. Brower Jr. Pinewold Park. Hopefully I said that correctly also. And our town historian, Julie Green, is here to give you some more background and detail on the historic value of the property. Oh, I'm sorry. We have our chair of the Landmarks and Historic Districts Board, Edward Wisnowski.
Good afternoon, Supervisor, members of the council. We did have a work session with the town board on this project on January 9th. This site meets the 4 of the 5 criteria that are laid out in town code. The town code sets standards. Those standards generally match what New York State and the U.S. government recognize as standards for historic preservation. And the specific characteristics are generally associated with whether or not there has been some important contributions to the cultural and social history of the community, and that was found to be the case with respect to Brower's contribution. He created monuments in concrete to be found in various communities on the East End. He also had national reputation as a ceramicist, creating pottery of national importance to be found in museums and to be also collected by individual collectors. The other characteristics, the castle is such a unique design. It was found to meet the criteria for an innovative design and construction. And it also meets the criteria of being very familiar as a structure and its sculptures, because it sits along Montauk Highway and has been obvious to all the patrons of the former Casa Basso restaurant that also sits on the property. Julie Green did prepare an excellent report for the board, and some other materials were forwarded to you, and we heartily recommend the designation to you. I'm not sure whether or not we contacted the great-grandson of Theophilus Brower. I'm not sure if he's on Zoom or not, but the family at least has been notified of this project as well.
I thought we were going to just, if we take this action, to designate the structures and sculptures, not the actual parcel. And I'm just surprised to hear that it's the parcel 2 that's going to be deemed historic, and how is that going to impact our ability to use it? So I don't know who's able to respond to that.
Well, the recommendation that we sent to you, I think, designates the whole parcel. There are other possible elements that might be involved. The existing sculptures, for example, might not necessarily wind up in the same place if it was to be reconfigured for historical preservation possibilities. The actual change of use that might occur would require then, under this recommendation of the property, would require a landmark board review for a certificate of appropriateness. I don't think those are generally problems, but that is something certainly to be asked about.
I mean, I don't think we had decided on whether we were going to have water access or not. I know some people in the community came out and were objecting to the possibility of that, and maybe others preferred it, but if we were to designate the property historic, would that eliminate the ability to provide water access?
No, not at all. The ability to, if it's designated a landmark, that doesn't mean it can't change. That's what certificates of appropriateness reviews are for, to modify or change the conditions. Some of it sometimes involves reconstruction and or expansion and all kinds of possibilities. So under the code for review, it would be an application be made, it would be reviewed to see whether or not it really kind of corrupts the original historic purpose to be preserved. But that is an open question. This is a theoretical question.
So when we did the hat shop, the Liaison Hat Shop in Hampton Bays, is that whole parcel deemed historic or just the building?
Well, the Liaison Hat Shop was moved to its position in Hampton Bays probably about 10, 12 years ago. And that's an example of how much can be done to change the circumstances. I don't believe the parcel itself, I'm not sure about the parcel it sits on, whether that was stipulated as part of the landmarking arrangement, but I think maybe it was the structure alone, the Liaison Hat Shop, designated a landmark and then moved.
So if we were to
Something
do
like
this,
a watermill or
the
windmill.
If we were to do this now and before the restaurant structure is demolished, wouldn't that capture the restaurant? We're not
Well,
designating that historic.
The restaurant has a part that is, I believe, historic, associated with Brower, but it's been so completely modified and changed over a period of time. I don't think there's any problem with the application is to demolish the restaurant. I think that was the understanding of the Landmarks Board at the time that the project was brought forward.
I think more the landmarking of the property in this instance is because, maybe Julie can answer to this, there's statuary throughout the property that by landmarking the property, we encompass all of those statues.
And they can all be treated as a landmark. Historically, there was there was.
You have to get up.
Julie knows.
Thank you, Ed.
Good afternoon. So historically, there was a dock that was on the property onto Beaver Dam Creek. We know that from some of the historical newspaper accounts of Theodophilus Brower's young daughter saving her even younger brother from drowning in Beaver Dam Creek. So they were playing on the dock. So historically, there was a dock. There was access to the water. If that meets anything to the criteria. So that's all I wanted to add to that, other than the history of the property itself.
I guess my question would be to CPF. With the designation of the entire parcel, would you say that there is any sort of limitation to public access because of that, or no?
No, I don't think so. You know, at this site, we were looking at preserving the entirety, and we've done an inventory of the remaining statues. You know, I don't know that all can be saved, but we're going to try to do our best to kind of accommodate all the existing statues. But, you know, kind of like Cindy said, they are kind of scattered amongst the entire site. We're going to try to restore them, but the goal was to demolish the restaurant.
I know this might be hypothetical, but if there's a scattering of some statues in one area, does that prohibit the public from entering that part of the parcel because of the statues, or?
No. I mean, right now you can pull in. It's a restaurant, so where the statues are located, they kind of are.
Well, I know right now, but once the designation, right?
No. Yeah, the whole point is to allow the public to enjoy these works of art and these sculptures. And you know, some are kind of by the front of the restaurant, so we'll have to look and see if those can be salvaged. But they might be shifted, right, so that they don't get know any.
And we're considering. Is your department considering a steward for this?
Yeah, we're hoping to work with someone in the local arts community. So I did reach out a little bit to see, but I think it would be a good fit. So some people have reached out to me, but we kind of still have to work on the stewardship agreement. But right now, we're trying to.
I would assume they would understand the importance of the public access.
Yes, yeah. I mean, one of the most important parts about the CPF statute is really public access. So we do want to make this attainable to the public, but obviously at first we kind of need to evaluate the statues. Some are kind of in front of the restaurant, so if they can be salvaged and relocated to an appropriate location, we'd of course like to do that.
Understood.
Yeah.
Well, you're saying if,
No, I was just saying, most of the comments we got regarding a park anyway was that people don't want this to be a formal park. They just kind of want some passive use of the waterfront, some benches, maybe a couple picnic tables. We're not looking to put jungle gyms in.
We're not talking.
Oh, no.
We're not talking like sports courts or you know, little league fields or anything like that. But I think what the concept is to remove where we can some of the pavement, reuse some of the pavement in disturbed areas, take down the restaurant, remove the IA system. Actually, it's not an IA system. Remove the conventional sanitary system, but then also allow for some component of public water access in this location.
when you say if we can restore, you know, perhaps we can't restore all of the sculptures, so my concern is if we say everything's historic, one, you know, fell swoop resolution, and then you say, well, this is going to cost, you know, $1 million to restore this statue. I mean, are we bound to do it then because it's historic and now it's been designated such? And
I mean, I think we do it to the best ability possible, right? Some of them are crumbling and in pieces. If we're not, you know, but we might be able to salvage the pieces and have photo documentation of what they used to look like. Some might be, unfortunately, beyond repair. But Julie was great, and she did an inventory of the structures that we have and their current state. So we have photos of all of them. Did you want to add?
Just there's very little
You have to. This is really important.
Yeah. So of the statuary that exists on the property, a lot of it had been moved when they widened Montauk Highway years ago. So the statuary used to run along the highway where the Cavaliers are now. It used to all go down the property. So most of it is in really good condition for its age. Everything was constructed on the property before 1932. That's when Theodophilus Brower died. This is, a lot of it is just minor repair, repainting, those type of things. So it's not, the restoration work on any of the statuary is not going to be, up until, you know, Beto Brockovich's ownership, he's been maintaining all the statues. So some of them were damaged along the way. This all lived through the hurricane of 1938. So it's not going to be, I wouldn't imagine that it would be a huge cost to do any repair work. It's all pretty good shape.
I just want to say to Julie, thank you very much for doing all the research on this. Was not very easy. You found a lot of stuff, and you found some other statues in Southampton, which hopefully we can get for the project.
Yeah. So I know that Ed had mentioned and did some excellent research as well. Some of the statuary that was out there. He was commissioned in during World War I and afterward to do some statuary World War I memorials, and there are those that are throughout the town. So there's one in Eastport, there's one in Moriches, and then he did, as mentioned, John Duck restaurant had them in Eastport, and then moved to Southampton right here in the village. There were statues on the lawn that we're trying to assemble and find out, at least have an inventory of where they are in the town. So, yeah, but thank you.
Thank you.
All right,
Thank you.
thanks.
The only
Thank
other
you
thing
all.
I wanted to mention was I did have some community members reach out. They were concerned about Jerry's Cake Confectionery. They found a new location. They are relocating to Eastport. So
That's great.
Yeah, I read that. in
Yeah,
paper.
that's good to hear because I know that was a favorite spot.
Yeah, I'm glad
um,
she found a new spot.
Yeah, and we had spoken to her at the very end of the year, just to tell her that this is moving forward, and she understood. So I'm glad that she's found a new location.
Okay, very good, thank you. We don't have any cards on this third public hearing. Kevin, is there anyone on Zoom? All right. And I move to close the public hearing.
second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, Madam Clerk, would you please read the notice for the fourth public hearing?
Public hearing number 4 to consider this, Public hearing number 4 to consider the use of community housing funds for the production of 79 affordable housing apartment units at the Preserve at South Country, Quiog, New York.
Good afternoon, Madam Supervisor, Town Board members. The Community Housing Fund Advisory Board received an application from South Country Road Apartments LLC, also known as the NRP Group, for $2.73 million to be used to develop a 17-acre parcel on South Country Road in Quiog into 79 affordable housing units. It is anticipated that 4 of the 17 acres will be set aside and purchased by CPF for open space preservation. The application states that the development prioritized family-sized units with 2- and 3-bedroom units comprising more than 60% of the project as follows: 31 1-bedroom units, 27 2-bedroom units, and 20 3-bedroom units. The project consists of 6 2-story walk-up buildings, a clubhouse that will contain a leasing and maintenance office, common laundry facilities, fitness room, mailroom, and kitchenette. The application also states that the income of the occupants will be restricted by the HUD area median income limits and designations as follows. 12 units are reserved for 30% of the area median income designated by HUD as extremely low income. By way of reference, that is a maximum annual income of $46,860 for a family of 4. 12 units are reserved for 50% of the area median income designated by HUD as very low income, or by reference, $78,100 for a family of 4. 32 units are reserved for 60% of the area median income designated by HUD as low income, or $93,720 for a family of 4. 22 units are reserved for 80% of the area median income designated by HUD as moderate income, or $124,950 annually for a family of 4. The maximum monthly rent amounts permitted pursuant to the current rents that are set by the town board on an annual basis are 1 bedroom, $1,563 a month, 2 bedrooms, $1,758 a month, and 3 bedrooms, $2,109 a month. The application states that 16 units will be reserved as affordable in perpetuity. The remaining 63 units will be reserved as affordable for a period of 50 years, after which time they can be rented at market rate. 4 units are reserved for the mobility impaired, and 4 units will be adapted for persons with hearing or vision impairments. The CHF Advisory Board has issued a recommendation to the town board, and there is a representative here to advise you of their recommendation. A representative from NRP Group is also here to address the board.
All right, thank you. Thank you so much. I do have a question. So what is the amount noted in perpetuity?
16.
16 units in perpetuity.
Correct.
Okay, excellent. And what was the amount of unit number for differently abled?
There are 4 units for mobility impaired, and then 4 units will be adapted
So
for persons with hearing or vision
So 8.
impairments. Well,
potentially.
they're potentially, right.
Carol, I have a question.
Sure.
I don't know if you're the right person to ask this question to. When they applied for this with you, did they tell you where the rest of the money's coming from what grants?
So my understanding, according to their application, it's a little bit confusing for me, but it appears from their application that there'll be state and county grants.
They say the figure, the number of them?
Yeah, it looks like the total amount for the project is $55 million. $44 million of that is my understanding, and NRP is here to answer those questions. $44 million is coming from New York State, and then there'll be some county grants, and then they're applying for this grant as well.
And some of those county grants, it's a great question, Bill. Some of those county grants in particular are relying upon a commitment from the town, correct?
For a match.
My understanding is, yes, that the county is looking for a match funds.
When you said about the community preservation fund, that's not part of this application, right? I mean, I don't know that that's even been an application that's been received. It hasn't been presented to the board.
It's not part of this.
Yeah. And was that those 4 lots for the density? Was that a trade-off or something?
I'll let NRP answer
Okay.
all those questions.
All right. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, somebody here from NRP that would like to present. Hi.
Good afternoon, Jonathan Gertman from the NRP group. Good to see some of you again. Good
Hi, John.
to be at my first time. I have a broad overview presentation. There was some question about whether that was in order for a public hearing. So I want to be deferential. Otherwise, I'm happy to just answer questions as they arise. If it's helpful to give a broader overview presentation and that's allowed, I'm happy to do so, but happy to just answer specific questions.
We would like to know how the money's coming from.
Sure. So as with all affordable housing projects of this type, it's really a alphabet soup of different sources of funding that come together to make these feasible. The bulk of the funding is from private mortgage and tax credits, federal housing tax credits, which are administered by the state of New York, along with state subsidy.
That's the 44 million.
No, that's probably not. I don't know.
I have to do some live
Is that
math,
what
but
that is?
approximately, yes. Let's say it's approximately, as Kara mentioned.
Those are tax credits that
Tax
money
credits
from the
along
state.
with tax credits along with subsidy that the state has in its budget to put into projects around the state to make them viable. The county is intending to move forward an application for some of their funds contingent on a match from the town, as was discussed.
And how much is that?
It's a match of the town money up to 2.8 million. So I think the application in front of you is 2.73, and we anticipate that would be the match from the county. We also applied for ESD funding of the Long Island Investment Fund. Yes, exactly. That they put out to help affordable housing projects on Long Island happen, and we're pending a formal announcement of that funding, but we do anticipate that they want to fund this project.
And how much do you think that would be?
In the area of $4 million.
Okay.
Oh, that's how he gets the 55.
So for a project of this size, you're pretty much coupling funds from multiple sources and trying to piece it all together to
That's what
have
we
it
do.
be 100%
Yes,
affordable.
Absolutely. That's the business. That's what we do. That's the name of the game.
Especially 30% to 50% AMI.
That's right. So from 30 to 80 with an average below 60% of AMI, exactly.
Yeah, you guys had, when you came in before the board, just different members are here now.
Sure.
You had a really great graphic of the different, in the town of Southampton,
Yeah.
the different, employments that would fit in these ranges
Sure.
and what those were. Could you?
Yeah, I have that handy. I could put it up, or I could just read you.
You could just read some of
Okay,
them.
so
Great.
some examples we pulled from, pulling off of the public information about, public employee contracts, and then looking at places like Glassdoor and hiring, .com. And so, for example, a police officer in the town of Southampton, starting salary is just under $69,000. They, if they're, live by themselves, they would be eligible for a 70% unit, so below that 80%. A nurse at Stony Brook, Southampton, it's actually on the higher end. If she has a 2-bedroom, that's an 80%. She qualifies for an 80% unit. West Hampton Beach school district teacher qualifies for a 60% AMI unit in a 2-bedroom, for example. A waiter in a restaurant is down at the 40% level if they earn about $42,000 a year. So try to
If
just,
the spouse does not work.
I'm sorry?
If they have a spouse and the spouse works, then it goes up.
Then they would be
Then
kicked
they
in.
have to
Yeah,
move,
there's
they
some.
have to move out.
They don't necessarily have to move out. They would qualify for a different level of affordability. Yeah, it's meant to be illustrative. But then there are rules around you actually, once you're in, it's not meant to be punitive for people to better themselves economically or more money. There's the rules allow for some, and these are published through the IRS, they allow for some wiggle room if you're already in the unit and you qualify initially. I can't quote you that percentage, but there's some percentage of wiggle room.
Is there different rents for different AMI? Like somebody's at the 40%, they pay less rent than 80%?
For sure, yes. It's pegged to the HUD standard of affordability, which is your housing costs, which are rent and utility, out-of-pocket utilities, should not exceed 30% of your gross household income.
And
When you purchased the property, what was it, about $5 million?
It's about right, yes. We're the contract purchaser with the Strebel family.
Oh, you haven't purchased it yet? It's
That's
still,
right. We're under, yeah. We have a contract to purchase it from them, yes. Pending all the.
how much do you think it's gonna cost to build?
We think the total development is about $55 million. It's an expensive project for many reasons.
And what can you tell me about the 4 lots that were set aside? Because if you had to get your numbers, you needed area, and that was set aside, then now you want to sell them back to the town.
Right. So the initial, it's a 21-acre property in total. So even a 10 units an acre. So this is going back in time. I've been intermittently up here since 2019. At one point, we had suggested 179 units could be appropriate. At I think 8 units per acre, that would be, or even less. Maybe that was sick. My math on the spot math, but well below 10 units an acre, which we've seen as a density in other parts of the town. That came down to 104 units an acre, and then ultimately the previous iteration of the town board, we landed at 79 for the change of zone and the secra neg deck.
What's that come
a little
to
over
per
a year
acre?
ago. That comes to, on the 21 acres.
Well, what's buildable, 17?
Okay, on the 17. Thank you. So 4.5 units on the net acreage of 17, and as part of that change of zone and the secret determination, there was a contemplation that 4 acres would be set aside for preservation to perpetuity via purchase by the CPF.
What is that? That was part of the condition of the zone change? I don't.
It was
recall.
part of the
Agreement.
yeah, maybe I'll defer to your colleagues.
In order
and
to
the
bring
town
down the
board.
number of
Yes.
units, we were going to set aside and purchase through CPF a portion of the property because we were taking that number off of the overall number of units.
So how do you know that's going to be appraised for $4 million?
Yeah, I mean.
Where did
$1 million
I don't believe
an
I
acre?
stated that.
You want to sell it back for $4 million.
We
Before
haven't
they
even-
buy it, they have to have it. Before CPF buy it, pays for it, buys it, they have to have it appraised. How do you think it's going to appraise? $1 million an acre? Am I
Sorry,
not-
I don't think I stated that.
No, we haven't had an appraisal and we haven't
No.
offered any money yet.
No, I know that, but the numbers I heard, they wanted to sell it back just for $4 million. to the CPF.
I didn't state that. Whatever the appraisal, I mean, there's a process, and I think we received approval from the previous town board for the CPF to initiate the appraisal process, and we have not yet. That was about a year ago, and we have not yet received the appraisals. So whatever the appraisals are, we can follow the process.
And go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, there you go.
Oh, I was just gonna say, so out of the $55 million overall cost for the project, you're seeking $2.73 million as a match for the county's funding.
That's right, from the town's affordable housing fund.
But it sounds like it'll cost $55 million to build, and the cost and all the grants you're getting is $55 million if you include the money from the town and the money from the county and the state.
The loan,
It's
the
like
mortgage,
it's
the
paying
tax
for
credit
itself.
equity, that's the package, yes.
And how much money do you have in it?
We have a significant investment to date in this project. As I said, we've been carrying it for about 4 years. And we will continue to have a deferred fee of $1.5 million at conversion at the permanent stabilized that we earn out over time. So the crux of affordable housing, typically in a real estate transaction, right, as a developer, you want to build something that has a value exceeding its cost. That's how one profits in the real estate sector. On the affordable housing side, the economic value of the property is less than the cost to build. That's what makes one able to offer it at the reduced and capped cost rents. So in order to bridge that gap between what it costs and what it's economically worth, that's where the tax credits and tax credit equity grants and other things come into play. In a place like New York, the tax credits and the debt alone aren't enough to pay for the cost of building. It's obviously we live in an expensive state. When you come out to the east end of Long Island, where it becomes extraordinarily expensive, time-consuming, and regulatorily difficult to build, those costs further balloon. So the need for those grants and match and other sources of funding become even greater.
And you've obviously already invested the money to get through the change of zone process and the secret,
design,
studies,
of
and
course.
the design.
We have several $1 million invested in the project.
Is that part of your 55 or is that?
Some of it comes out at the close. That's money that we're at risk on, and some of it stays in to be earned out over time. And this is exactly the same structure that Spion Commons, other tax credit developments in the East End have followed.
Are you willing to help the school out by, once you get going and there's so many kids in that area from that unit, help the school with a donation like the golf courses do? Because it's a big burden on this. I'm for housing,
sure,
but also I'm very concerned about the neighborhood and the school district. And it's very expensive to educate kids, and if there's special needs kids, it goes way up.
Mm-hmm.
And you could actually kill the neighborhood and kill the school district by putting a lot of kids in there without being reimbursed.
Well, I'm not sure how neighborhoods get killed by having kids, and I understand that the New York State funding, mechanism is that the state kicks in a significant amount of funding, right, per school child. But when we went through the secret process, part of our studies were a school kid estimate and a cost benefit analysis, and we were able to show that on a 79-unit project with a lot of obviously some 2 and 3 bedroom units, trying to meet the need of the community, that the school child impact is anticipated to be pretty limited. We have pretty good data. I don't have it in front of me, but we provided all of it through the studies, our expert engineering, et cetera, planning review on what the actual impact of school kids is in these projects across the town. I don't have that with me. I have it. It's in the public record. Okay. But we actually also were able to show that over the last 10 years, this is the West Hampton School District. It's been steadily declining in enrollment, and actually, to the extent that which money follows the kids, they actually have some issues with keeping classes full, is my understanding. We've had the superintendent come and others speak and had interactions with them through the secret process, which we completed about a year ago.
We had the superintendent come speak too, and she seemed concerned about the impact on the school.
She's here today.
Oh, hi, Carolyn. Okay, well, You wanna just,
And we
let
also did,
people
as part of
speak?
the approval for the change of zone, we actually did do the pilots at full market rate.
So you considered a tax,
Payment in taxes.
your predictability agreement last month that was at fully at the number that the assessor put in. Yes, exactly. There was no discount or anything to the taxes that otherwise would have been assessed. That's right.
well, why don't we let some people come up and speak? They don't go anywhere. We might need you again. All right, the first card is Donna Gobel. And after Donna is Michelle Thompson.
Hi,
Hi, Donna.
my name is Donna Goebel, and I live on Jennifer's Path in Quiot. And I wanted to express my concern on the change of the perimeters that were proposed in that community in our neighborhood. Our children, including my own, have returned to the area from college, trade schools, military service. They are now working members in our community within Southampton town. My son is a full-time airman at the 106th Rescue Wing. As many friends, he has many friends in their 20s and 30s who are teachers and nurses, trade workers, office workers, etc. They are our workforce. That's one word that I missed hearing was workforce in this, and that's how it was projected to us, was that it was going to be workforce housing. Most of this age group are living at home with their parents, which is wonderful. We want them to be independent adults, or they're living outside of Southampton town. The reason is the lack of quality, affordable options for purchase or for rent in Southampton town. Workforce housing in Spionk is lovely. It's a new, modern, aesthetically pleasing community, and it draws in the workforce. The proposed neighborhood in Quiot is what our side of the town is in need of. It was initially marketed as workforce housing, those earning 60 to 80%, as they said, of area median income, also known as our 20 and 30-year-olds. But those parameters have changed. Now you're saying that the 79 units proposed, the majority of those units are reserved for tenants that HUD designates as extremely low, very low, or low income. Our workforce will not qualify necessarily for these units. This is not what was initially proposed. Once again, you are limiting the options for the need for our next generation, families, our workforce. Workforce housing can be a draw to accepting employment and remaining employed within Southampton town. The workforce are the important makeup of our ambulance and fire departments, schools, churches, our community. Do we want the workforce residents invested members in our town? Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Michelle Thompson, and then Jennifer Newmayer.
Hi, my name is Michelle Thompson, and this is my third time in this room to discuss this housing project. I would like to just bring up a little bit of some old business that I had spoken about previously. I am concerned that South Country Road, if you are not familiar with the road, is a very small 2-lane road. And when you exit out of South Country Road onto Montauk Highway, the traffic is going in 4 directions. It's already very dangerous for cars and for people who are walking. And so with the 79 apartments, I'm just taking an educated guess that we're looking at well over 150 more cars on that road all day long. Also, at the other end of the road, we have Quag Wildlife, which has a parking lot across the street from the area where people walk. And so I have this mental image of people racing home between 3 and 5 o'clock to get to these apartments because their children, however many they're going to be, are getting off the bus. And at the same time, we have families going to the park and walking across the street. And people are not going to be driving 30 miles an hour. This we know. Another area of concern for me is the fact that we are going to be cutting down approximately 15 acres of woods, of trees. And I did a little bit of homework, and there is an endangered bird in that area. And I know that builders are supposed to be concerned about that. And I wonder if this builder has paid any attention to the fact that there is endangered wildlife in these woods. And the New York Heritage Program and the Eastern Long Island Audubon Society have confirmed for me that specifically the name of the bird is Chuck Will's widow, and that bird is endangered and does reside over there. I'm concerned about the fact that we were told initially that this was going to be workforce housing, and now they have changed that. That has been changed, evidently, and I'm not sure how that took place. And as you've heard, we do have a large need for workforce housing, and so I think that's something else that needs to be addressed. And that's it. Those are my concerns. Thank you for listening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Jennifer?
Good afternoon. My name is Jennifer Newmeyer. I serve as a trustee on the West Hampton Beach Board of Education. However, today I'm here representing myself. I'm here to speak today about the proposed use of the Community Housing Fund, CHF, for the preserve at South Country. First and foremost, I want to emphasize that the CHF is funded by our taxpayers. These are public dollars that we must ensure are used responsibly. It indirectly goes into this fund, and that it aligns with the goals and recommendations that are set forth by the Town of Southampton's housing plan, which I have here as well. So I'm deeply concerned about the long-term financial implications of this project, especially for our schools and our community services. There seems to be a misalignment with how these funds, these community fund dollars, can be used. Now, per the Town of Southampton plan, CHF can prioritize home ownership and accessibility, and it outlines very specifically ways that the CHF can be used, including first-time homebuyer assistance, employer-assisted housing, and the production and rehabilitation of community housing for sale to eligible individuals. Nowhere in the guidelines is funding for large-scale rental developments explicitly listed as a use for community housing fund dollars. And this request for $2.73 million of community housing fund dollars, again, taxpayer dollars, most certainly stretches the intended purpose of the fund. So in speaking about taxpayer dollars, you're essentially hitting us taxpayers twice. I'm a resident of West Hampton. First, you're asking to use the $2.73 million of taxpayer-funded dollars, which doesn't meet the intended criteria for CHF dollars. And secondly, the financial strain that you have put our taxpayers and school district in by approving this inadequate pilot that you agreed on in the last meeting, not giving Dr. Probst more time to review, which I remind you is for 17 acres, 79 units, paying only an estimated annual tax over 30 years for $74,000. This pilot payment barely covers the cost of adding one student, and I have the data. In the original application, it was about 25 students that are intended to come in from this project. If we look at this in comparison to Spionk Commons, it was the original application, I believe it said there were 3 students that would come into Repsenburg, and there's actually 12 students. Typically, any of these type of housing developments severely and significantly underestimate the implications that the number of people and the implications on the broader community. So let it be known that if the school district needs to pierce the cap to compensate for the additional costs to address the financial gaps that you've created by agreeing to this pilot, it sits with Southampton, the town of Southampton.
30 seconds.
Why place more of a financial burden on our taxpayers when the NRP group that's requesting, again, $2.73 million, they have annual revenues of $228 million per year. They have a family foundation, $4.7 million in non-taxable assets. I have the form here. A profitable private organization like NRP Group should not rely on community housing funds that are meant to directly benefit local residents,
3 minutes.
not bolster private profits. Thank you.
Tom Lovain. Tom's with the CHF Advisory Board.
Good afternoon, Supervisor Moore, members of the town board, and Mr. Burke. My name is Tom Iavani. I'm here
Oh,
today.
I'm sorry. I thought it was an L.
Oh, that's okay.
Iavani.
Yeah, that's all right. No worries. So my name is Tom Iavani. I'm here today on behalf of the Community Housing Fund Advisory Board. As you're aware, and some of this might be redundant, as you're aware, the applicant, NRP, is seeking a $2.73 million grant from the Community Housing Fund to support a 79-unit multifamily development, which will consist of a mix of 1, 2, and 3-bedroom affordable rental units and 1 superintendent's unit. The applicant has indicated that for a period of time, 12 units will be reserved for households earning 30% or less of the area median income, AMI. 12 units will be reserved for households earning 50% or less of the AMI. 32 units will be reserved for households earning 60% or less of the AMI, and 22 units will be reserved for households earning 80% or less of the AMI. In its original CHF application that the advisory board reviewed in November of 2024, the applicant indicated that all units will remain affordable for a period of 40 years, after which time they proposed that only 4 units would remain affordable in perpetuity. Yesterday, we received a revised submission from the applicant, which indicates that 20% of the units, now 16 in total, will remain affordable in perpetuity, as rendered by the town board's decision to rezone the property to multifamily use in November of 2023. The applicant's amended submission to the CHF fund also indicates the balance of the 62, the balance of units, 62 that would be, will remain affordable for a period of 50 years, in accordance with the terms of the grants or subsidies received from the federal government, state of New York, or other municipal agencies. After 50 years, the applicant indicated to us that 62 units may convert to market rate rental units, as the developer, lender, or investor at that time may then decide. The CHF Advisory Board is pleased to see that the applicant has revised its original application to honor the requirements of the town board zoning decision requiring 16 units remain affordable in perpetuity. So let me now address the applicant's request for the $2.73 million in community housing funds and the CHF Advisory Board's recommendation to the town board regarding this request. We understand that the town board will ultimately determine how to interpret the length of time and how many units it will require to remain affordable with the town board's review of the request for CHF funds. We hereby share the advisory board's input to help inform that decision. As you're aware, the CHF enabling legislation sets forth that all community housing created with the use of CHF funds shall remain affordable. As part of our due diligence, a member of the CHF Advisory Board, who is with us today, and we'll speak of this in greater detail, reached out to former State Assemblyman Fred Thiel, the co-sponsor of the CHF enabling legislation, and requested his understanding of the legislative intent of the use of the phrase shall remain affordable. Assemblyman Thiel stated that the intent of the language was to have the units created or preserved with community housing funds remain affordable in perpetuity. Therefore, in exchange for the benefit of CHF funding, the CHF Advisory Board would look to the applicant to set aside additional units as affordable in perpetuity. With respect to how many additional units we would recommend to the town board in exchange for the request of $2.73 million in CHF funds, the Advisory Board, leveraging the knowledge of its members with expertise in the development of affordable and market rate housing, considering the funding request against a reasonable per unit cost to build new affordable units, recommends to the town board that it would be reasonable to acquire at least 10 to 15 additional units. This is beyond the 16 units required in perpetuity in exchange for the zoning change, and the 4 additional units required in perpetuity in exchange for the county grant. Overall, this would total 30 to 35 units to be required to remain affordable in perpetuity. In addition, CHF Advisory Board would recommend that the affordable units preserved in perpetuity would be a diverse mix of 1, 2, and 3-bedroom units, that any awards of CHF funding be paid in stages pursuant to a project completion schedule to ensure the development would remain on track and to goals over time. And finally, that any award of CHF funding require the applicant to pay back the CHF funds, i.e. a conditional loan, silent loan, not necessarily a grant, and make the fund whole if and when any of the units the board recommended remain affordable in perpetuity, meaning the 10 or 15 additional units, may convert to market rate pricing. 8 members of the advisory board voted to support the recommendations I've outlined today. 1 member voted to require that all 78 units remain affordable in perpetuity. 2 members were not present for the discussion and vote. And finally, as you're aware, we shared our further input related to this application for the town board's consideration by letter on December 18th, 2024. I appreciate your consideration of the Community Housing Fund Advisory Board's recommendations. Thank you. I had one further comment, if you wouldn't mind. This comes from me personally. I'd like to ask the board to carefully consider its stance on the interpretation of language within the CHF project plan that calls to the duration of affordable housing benefits in exchange for CHF funds. While not a perfect document, I believe that the overriding intent of the Community Housing Fund's project plan is to provide for permanent and lasting affordable housing benefits to the community for which it serves. Much in the same way, the CPF, Community Preservation Fund, seeks permanent and lasting land preservation benefits to the community for which it serves, and has successfully done so for the past 27 years. In my opinion, it's relative precedent that land preserved through CPF is permanent preservation, and yet there is no perpetuity language alluding to such specific intent in the project plan. If you were to review the project plans, the original project plan, and any update that was made from the CPF, you wouldn't find any language that speaks to perpetuity. You'd find 286 times language preserving, but you wouldn't find any language with regard to perpetuity. The town board's ruling on the CHF benefits during this application will set an equal precedent. And so it's my hope the town board carefully considers this. Thank you for your time today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next speaker is Carolyn Probst.
Would you like to hand in your comments, or they were distributed?
What's his name? Tom. Hey, Tom, would you like to hand in your comments?
Did you submit those comments to the town clerk's office?
Thank you.
Welcome, Superintendent.
Thank you very much. My name is Carolyn Probst. I am the Superintendent of the West Hampton Beach School District. I'd like to thank Supervisor Moore and members of the Council for allowing me the opportunity to speak on this topic today. I have attended meetings regarding the proposed preserve at South Country, and I have spoken on behalf of the school district on this topic on multiple occasions. I never made any of the statements that were attributed to me by the representative who spoke from the NRP group. But when I have spoken on this topic, my messaging and requests have been clear and consistent. I've asked for time, proper notice, and thoughtful and cooperative decision making with an awareness of the impact that a project like this would have on the West Hampton Beach School District. To be more specific, the impact on our district enrollment, our staffing, and our expenses. I joined your December 19th meeting virtually when the town board was considering a pilot for this development. In that meeting, I urged the board to allow more time, but unfortunately that was not the direction taken. We are not a large school district in West Hampton Beach, and in fact our enrollment is declining, but that does not mean that we can immediately handle a large influx of students. We have grade levels in our elementary school where we have only 2 or 3 class sections per grade. An influx of students like the one I would expect from a project like this that has so many 2 and 3 bedroom units and is proposed to prioritize family housing is something the district would need time to plan for. It would have a significant impact, particularly if that influx were to occur when a school year was already underway, when our staffing and budget were already set for the year. Which is why I'm speaking specifically and urge that adequate time for that thoughtful decision making is provided. When decisions and actions are undertaken at a pace that I think could jeopardize proper planning, it gives me great concern. Concern for our school district and our ability to properly plan for our students. I would be very, very open to engaging in a dialogue with you, Supervisor Moore, or any members of the council on this topic. I know that was suggested at the December 19th meeting, and I do want to just reaffirm and say thank you for that suggestion and commit that I would be very interested in speaking further on the topic. Thank you.
Thank you.
I do have a question, Madam Superintendent. This was brought before the board in 2023 by the previous board for a zone change. Were you involved in any of those initial discussions?
Yes, I attended on behalf of the school district a virtual meeting where I spoke about exactly what I said just today, that we would need time and dialogue in order to be able to properly plan for the potential influx of students.
And I wasn't here, so
Mhm.
your edification on this would be
Sure.
important for me to make my decision.
Sure.
And maybe the board collectively.
Mhm.
Was there any back and forth with the previous board on this particular once it came
No.
before the board for the decision of the zone change?
So my participation in the meeting at that time, I think it was all virtual, and it was
It's like
a
November,
very,
December of
it was a
23.
very well attended meeting, and so it was, deliver your comments, and there wasn't a conversation, if you will. But at that time, I expressed concerns about funding for the school district and the time that we would need to properly plan for an influx of students.
Some of the school districts, I've spoken to, Hampton Bays, I've spoken to Remsenburg,
Mhm.
and some of, school district representatives have mentioned an issue with retaining employees, teachers. Some teachers, for instance, are traveling from, west of the canal, from Brookhaven, from Riverhead. Are you finding that, amongst your staffing?
We don't face probably the same challenges as our more eastern school districts, right? That I tell people the traffic doesn't start until you get just past us, so please come apply.
That's true.
It is very true. We're appreciative. So we don't see those same challenges, I think, that the commute has for some of our school districts that are further east. Mm.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I just want to tell you thank you. You have a wonderful school district. My daughter graduated from there a few years ago.
Thank
Doing
you.
very well.
We're very proud of it.
Keep
Thank
up the good work.
Thank you.
All right, Myron Holtz.
Myron?
Good afternoon, Supervisor Moore, members of the town board, and Mr. Burke. My name is Myron Holtz, and I'm a resident of the town of Southampton in the hamlet of North Sea, and I'm also a member of the Community Housing Fund Advisory Board. I would like to speak to you in respect to this development, especially with the focus on the term of perpetuity or forever in the wording of the legislation. To that end, my background, I wrote to Assemblyman Fred Thiel back in December 20th. I called his office. I spoke to his executive assistant who told me to send the Assemblyman an email about the issue and that he was going to be away for the holiday, but he would get back to me. So I sent the following email. Good afternoon, Assemblyman Thiel. I'm reaching out to you as I believe that you are a co-sponsor of this groundbreaking piece of legislation seeking to promote the development of affordable housing on the east end of Long Island. I'm not sure if you remember me, but I have spoken to you in the past about housing issues. As prior to my retirement from New York State Service, I was employed at the New York State Division of Housing and Community Renewal, now known as the Department of Homes and Community Renewal, for 34 years, the last 15 of which I served as a Deputy Commissioner for Housing Supervision. With this background, I think you can appreciate that I am a staunch supporter of the creation of affordable housing in New York State, but more importantly in the town of Southampton, where I live permanently. With my extensive background in the development and operation of affordable housing, I was appointed to the Southampton Town by the Southampton Town Board to serve as a member of the Community Housing Fund Advisory Board. I have a question regarding the wording in a specific section of the legislation creating the Community Housing Fund. Section 1, subsection 7A, paragraph 8, paren E. Such plan shall ensure that all community housing created pursuant to this section remains affordable. I am trying to find out if you can render some insight as to the legislative intent of the words remains affordable in the context of housing created with the aid of CHF funds. Was the intent of that plan to require that any developer proposing to build or acquire affordable housing units with CHF funds commit via some type of restrictive covenant on the property where such affordable housing units are built remain affordable in perpetuity, surviving as such after a potential future transfer of ownership interest and or the expiration of any statutory or regulatory requirement agreement under which the affordable housing units were created. If you have the time, I would appreciate hearing your perspective on this matter. And I told them where I can be reached, my cell phone number, my home number, and my best wishes to you and your family for a joyous holiday and a happy new year. Best regards, Myron Holtz. That was on December 20th. I waited until the holiday was over, and I wrote again. I sent him a text on January 18th.
3 minutes.
Good afternoon, Mr. Thiel. This is Myron Holtz from the Southampton Community Housing Fund Advisory Board reaching out to you once again. I apologize for bothering you with regard to the interpretation of the words remain affordable in the legislation creating the CHF on the East End, as I outlined in my recent email to you. In our prior telephone conversation on this matter, you told me that based upon your involvement as a co-sponsor of this legislation, you are of the opinion that remain affordable was intended to mean any developer who received funding from the CHF for the development of any units designated as affordable housing was required to commit that such units remain affordable forever. A contentious issue has arisen regarding an application from a developer who is seeking CHF funds for their development, as well as funds from Suffolk County and New York State Homes and Community Renewal under the Federal Low-Income Housing Tax Credit Program, which only require that units receiving low-income housing tax credit funds remain affordable during the initial restricted use period and any subsequent extended use period voluntarily entered into by the developer with the local supervising regulatory agency. While based upon my background, that may be true under the IRS rules and regulations regarding the tax benefits derived by the developer from participation in the low-income housing tax credit program, members of our advisory board believe that the potential 40-year restriction does not apply to any affordable housing units in that development that are developed with the funds from the Southampton Town CHF. In order to address this issue, we were hoping that you could provide us with something in writing,
Myron,
be it your learned opinion.
You're over 3 minutes.
Did he respond?
Yes. Can I just
Yeah,
give him
let's skip
your
to the-
response?
It's with
If the town sends
advisory
me a
board.
letter, I'll put something in writing. I don't know if the Attorney General would get involved or that it would be worth much. When they do an informal opinion, it also takes forever. The language of the statute is one thing. Regardless, these are town dollars. The town board could condition that units be affordable in perpetuity, even if the statute was silent, which it is not. And now I have what he texted to me.
Would you like to
Okay.
submit that to the record?
Yes, I
Okay.
will.
Thank you.
All right. I just wanted to add one thing. The low-income housing tax credit program is not funded with tax dollars other than the U.S. Treasury. The federal government created that program. Instead of giving money to development of affordable housing, they decided to give industry, developers, and financial institutions and corporations tax credits if they invest in the housing. So it's not equity from the developer. It's equity from J.P. Morgan, Goldman Sachs, or anybody else who wants to give money so that their corporation gets a benefit on their income taxes. And they compete
And
to
Myron,
provide money.
And you've you've worked on a lot of these housing matters
Yes.
for a long time in our
Yes.
community, and I appreciate your insight and input. So that I think it's really important to underscore, especially as it pertains to the federal tax credits,
Yes.
where that's coming from. Can you also just speak briefly about CHF and just and I'm sure you understand
Mm-hmm.
the mechanism of CHF. It was mentioned that it's tax dollars. It is a tax.
It's public, it's
But
private
can
money
you-
given to the community to comply with the
Could you-
statute.
Are you able, and if not, I think at some point we should bring up our CHF director just to outline exactly what CHF money is and where it comes from. Are you able to briefly outline that?
I can tell you that the statute provided that, just like Community Housing Preservation, the Community Preservation Fund provided that if you sell a house at a certain price, it's almost like a sales tax. It's a purchase tax.
It's a real
Transfer
estate transfer.
A real estate transfer tax that's
So with
paid
this-
by the purchaser
Right,
of the property.
so correct me if I'm wrong, Myron. So when a house is sold, a portion of that sale goes into the CPF and the CHF fund.
I would say that whoever's buying the house
Paid for by the purchase.
has to provide a
Right.
check to the county or whoever it is that holds the money.
Right.
And then it's used and transferred to the Community Housing Fund I guess there's an account,
By
a controller.
the county,
Right.
the county treasurer.
The county transfers it and there's a lag. But it's not equity from the developer.
Right.
In many cases, the developer has no skin in the game other than the developer's fee.
I just want to be
Yeah.
clear what CHF
Yes,
is.
it is not, my taxes are not going to
directly
provide
to
that.
CHF,
No.
right,
But if I
okay.
sell my house, the purchaser who's gonna pay, money is gonna have to
It's
go
an
into that
important
fund.
distinction.
Yes.
100% of the sales.
Yes.
Yeah, I just think it's an important distinction to be made when you say it's a tax. It has to be, I think, specified exactly how that process is.
I refer
drawn.
to the CHF funds, not taxpayer dollars.
Right. Okay.
Because it
Thank
is
you.
not.
Thank you. Thank you, Mary.
Thank you.
All right, well, that's it for the cards. Kevin, is there anybody on Zoom who would like to speak at the public hearing? Okay, bring them in. Oh. Why, are you suggesting a certain time, you two?
We can't hear you. You have to unmute yourself.
Unmute. Hello?
There you go.
Can you hear me now?
Yes. Very faintly, though.
Hello?
Yeah,
Very
we hear you.
faintly? Just a minute. Is that better?
Yes.
Good. Hello, I'm George Lynch. I live in Quiog. I thank you, and I thank you for all of you for all that you're doing for our town. I want to speak very briefly in favor of this project. I'm looking at numbers, and I wish I had checked them a little more carefully, but the number of units here strikes me as constituting a very, very dramatic increase in the overall number of affordable units that there will be in Southampton town. I'm sorry. Can you hear me?
Yeah. Yes. Keep going.
Good. Okay. As I say, it'll be a dramatic increase in the overall number of units that we have in Southampton town, affordable units, and we all know what a crying need there is for this. Given that fact, I think that we must persist in this, even though real and serious concerns have been raised today respecting the length of time for which units are to be affordable, the perpetuity question, I'll call it, the effect on our schools and our school budgets, and other concerns. I urge this board to stick with it. Stick with it because this is a very, very important thing. I was in Houston not long ago for a wedding, and we visited the Space Center, where, of course, they had the famous quote by President Kennedy, we choose to go to the moon, not because it is easy, but because it is hard. I ask this board not to be discouraged by the fact that this is hard, and it obviously is, but do stick with it, and let's see if we can't bring this very important, very valuable project home to fruition. Thank you very much.
Thank you, George. Is that it, Kevin, or is anybody else waiting?
Yeah, that's all on Zoom.
I just want to, can I just ask the applicant one more question?
Yeah, of course.
If you could just go, I just wanted to just clarify a few things because there's been a lot of comments and I think this is going on at the planning board level as well. Something we need to clarify here is that this is not are we doing this project or not doing this project? The town already approved this project and we already approved the change of zone. You're going through the planning process again for site plan, not for can you do 79 units of affordable housing? And something else I wanted to clarify is can you please clarify the number of units and the affordability rates are what they were when they came before the town board from the original asset. They have not changed throughout the process.
Yes, and yes.
I just want to make that
yeah,
point because it
yeah.
did seem very low, but in all honesty, when we looked at this, the town board, I think what you're missing is when we went through the PowerPoint and we looked at the actual occupations that were affected, even the percentages, even though they seem low for what people even who work for the town and the sanitation department and the highway department and, you know, our you know, legislative staff, like some of them, very many of them would qualify for this homes. And also at the very low end, when you're talking about 8 units for those with disabilities, those individuals are most likely not workforce, right? They're most likely on
Yeah.
assistance,
Thank you.
and they would not make, you know.
Yes, thank you. There a lot of things said today that I might take some issue with, but I'm going to try to. I just want to, if I could, take a couple minutes to respond just to the things that are pertinent to the question before you today, which is, should affordable housing money set aside for affordable housing be used for this affordable housing project? Because you're right, that's the question before the board. And I think I could adopt George's quote of President Kennedy as my personal mantra for this project. So yes, we're doing it because it's hard. But yes, I mean, the income ranges have not changed. Fully, I'm doing a little bit. 59% of the units, 54 units are at 60% or 80% of AMI. Very few, relatively. 12 units at or below 30%. 12 units at or below 50%. So whether you call it workforce, affordable, and those words are kind of interchangeable. This is for the working people who live in this town, who make it go, who make it happen. Essential workers, we called them at a time, at a time.
But if you say 12 below 30 and 12 below 50, that means
At or below.
any of the 12 that are at or below 50 could be 30 also, right? I mean, it's not
Theoretically, yes, but
50
look,
or above,
but
it's
it
50 or
works.
below.
Yes, but the demand is so great, we will. I mean, the natural flow is for the.
You also have to be able to afford to pay the
We have
rent.
to pay the mortgage. We have to pay the expenses. So if it's 50%, they're paying a 50% rent. They may earn a little bit below to qualify, but they're paying that rent. So it's who can qualify. You have to exist within a band. You have to make enough to meet our income qualifications, right? We want people who are able to afford the rent and pay the rent. And we do credit checks and criminal and all those fun things. So it's a tight band within each of those, except for if they move in and then the incomes rise, there's some room for flexibility so that they don't become evicted. So just on that point, it is very much a work. This will create the most workforce housing that I think the town has done in a very long time. I do just want to apologize to the superintendent. She's right that my personal interaction was actually with the last superintendent, which, as I say, this project's been going on since 2019. Everything about it has been methodical, thoughtful, and very thorough. And my memory lapse or lack of clarification there, I think, is just proof of how extensive the process has been to get to this point. So it was my personal interaction on those conversations was with the previous superintendent.
Are you able to commit to meeting with the superintendent and the school board to make sure that if there are any concerns, you can help address some of them? I know that we're, as Councilwoman said, we're sort of already far along into this process, and for us to sit here and say we can't move forward, I worry about the legal implications of that. But especially since it's gone through a zone change already, 2023. I would like to see, however, that there is a commitment, though, to communicating with the community, communicating with the school district and the superintendent. Is that something you can commit to?
Of course. I mean, look, we lost Janice, but whether it's Janice, whether it's the town attorney, whether it's our council person McNamara, I mean, I'd like to think this whole process has been extraordinarily open, communicative, collaborative, as I say, to get to this point of almost 6 years in the making. So there are no surprises. There are no shocks here.
No, I just want to hear from
yes.
you. Yeah, okay.
And then just to reiterate, I mean, the tax issue is not before us, but we're paying exactly market assessed tax.
Can I also ask you something else? It was brought up that the income parameters have changed. Is that the case?
No.
Okay.
The incomes change as
I wasn't aware of
as
that.
incomes rise, right? It's pegged to an area median income, which is published every year. So the dollar for a 50% person is not the same as it was 6 years ago, as our dollars all of our dollars for everything are not the same as they were 6 years ago, but the AMIs, the ranges, the plan absolutely has not changed.
And of the 16,
that's
of the 16 units that are in perpetuity, are those the ones that will be receiving CHF funding?
That's right. And I think if you look at the per unit, the history of CHF funding and per unit allocations, et cetera, we're well within the range of appropriate, I think.
And also the disability units as well?
What's that?
The units of the 8 units for the differently abled, those will also be receiving the CHF funding?
They could or don't, but don't have to be.
Okay, but the 16 in perpetuity are receiving.
And those requirements are sort of minimum requirements. We have further obligations on reasonable accommodations, et cetera, for folks who need it. So those are like ADA minimum.
So if you don't mind staying there, but also I have a question for the housing director. Do you mind just, Kara, coming up for just 1 second?
I'll just like.
Do we have CHF funds for rental housing elsewhere in the town?
We have a project that we did in Sag Harbor that was for workforce housing. Yeah, we did that. But we have a program for workforce housing under our program plan, specifically for workforce housing.
It was for 6 units.
For rental.
And for rental.
Right.
Because it was sort of portrayed that we don't have anything in the project plan that accommodates rental units.
Yeah,
and I just want to make sure that the public understands that rental is a part of it.
Workforce housing.
Is there a distinction? She said,
which requires
not large scale rental.
Yes, that is correct, and she was correct in what she stated to you. The program that we have.
I wasn't saying she was incorrect, but I was stating that there is also sections within the CHF project plan that does stipulate rental.
We have a program, a specific program in the community housing project plan that is for workforce housing, which requires that a tenant living in the apartment unit work at least 30 hours a week within the township. That's the program that we have.
So what is the
But
difference?
those are rental units.
That's a rental unit, yes.
Thank you.
That the one that we did, yes.
What's the difference between the workforce housing, what you just talked about, and the one where he's promoting for the 79 units?
Well, the 79 units that he's promoting, those people don't have to, there's no covenant that would require them to work within the township. They could work anywhere and live in those units.
So if it was workforce housing, they would have to work in the community.
If you designate that a covenant, anybody who's going to be residing in those units would have to work at least 30 hours a week within the township. That's the program that we have in our project plan.
But we're also purchasing property with CHF funds to create rental units.
Yes. Yes, we are.
And the term that we use, workforce housing for that project that we have as a town, that's a very specific, narrow definition of workforce housing. I mean, I know it's also kind of used as a term of art in the affordable housing world.
Yeah, so workforce housing under HUD definitions is between 60% and 80% of the area median income.
That's a different
That's
definition
what
than what
HUD
you're talking about.
HUD designates as workforce housing.
So and some of the units that NRP is proposing is within that scale.
Some of them. Some of the units are between, I think it was it 24 units at 60% and 20 units at 80%.
Okay.
Yeah.
Are you able to just go over that really quick again, just so that we understand the breakdown? You'll have to come up to here. If you don't mind.
Thanks, Kara.
Thank you, Kara.
12 units at 30%, 12 units at 50%,
Or
32
below.
or below. Yes, you cannot you have to meet it, and that has to do with the rent is the rent. You can make $1 under, you can't make $1 over. It's Wheel of Fortune rules. 32 units at 60% of AMI, 22 units at 80% of AMI. So the vast majority are 60% or 80%.
Within the scale of what HUD considers workforce housing.
I'm not familiar that HUD has a defined word for workforce, but
Okay.
it's within that 60 to 80% range that the director just said, yes.
That's good. Thank you.
I have a question for you.
Yes, sir.
Are you willing to change your plan to workforce housing like what the town has, where they have to work 30% in the town?
We cannot make that requirement based on the sources of funding. The 98% of the funds that are coming in, because
it's not your own money.
Location of work is not a protected class,
Yeah.
by any standard. So
To that very point, I don't discount the committee's request that everything be in perpetuity. When you put into the grand scheme of we're being asked for $2.7 million as a match to county funding on a $55 million project, and you talk to some of these developers and they tell you, listen, we can't even get a funding source that will allow us to do an in perpetuity affordability clause because we would lose our funding to do the project as a whole. So if we can't come up with the amount of funding needed to basically tip the scales so that we have some that will say, yes, if you give us this amount of funding, we could do that perpetuity clause because we're not relying on an outside funding source at that point. So we're really, we've been working, and Jim, you've reached out to several developers of affordable housing, and they just tell us it's just not doable to do an in perpetuity clause when we have to take out these loans and grants, and we just can't do it. So when you look at the whole scale, and maybe that's what we have to look at for a scale of, funding for a project. I mean, 2.7 as a match to county funding on a $55 million project, for $55 million project, for to say we're giving you 2.7 million and we want the whole project in perpetuity, it's not a reasonable thing. So for me, those 16 units that they're required to have in perpetuity, I feel like the amount we're giving them, even if it's just applied to those 16 units, is still less than money that we've given to other projects. Mm-hmm. So, and then we get into the nuanced of, well, if they're required, then should we be funding them? Well, if they're required, do you want the whole project as a whole to fail or to go forward? I mean, that's really, not saying $2.7 million is going to sink or swim this project, but we put the zoning in place. We said we want these 79 units of affordable housing in our community, and we're being asked now to basically help get that across the finish line on a $55 million project. So there's definitely, I take all of your comments and considerations into mind, but I also at the same time wouldn't want this project to lose another $2.7 million because we didn't give them the match to that funding. And it's just kind of like, and then what does that set up the match for another source of funding? There's such a whole puzzle that they have to put together for funding, and I think people don't understand. Like, it's not just you're going for a mortgage for a project and we're offsetting that mortgage a little bit. These are all integral pieces to getting the whole project together and over the finish line. So I think that's just what we're being asked to do, and this board's going to have to weigh everything we heard and all the information we have and decide if we want to go forward.
Sure. No. Just gotta come up here.
Good afternoon. I'm Joy Cianci with the Housing Advisory Board as well. Just something to think about, very respectful of everything you just put forward. One thing that Tom said, I just want to point out again, is think of the precedent and the question of, does this perhaps then look to something that reverts to kind of a silent loan or something that pays back if and when it ever gets to flipping to market rate? So that's our concern about using this money. I know this perpetuity thing is a challenge. We have a pipeline of things that we're looking at. So, we've talked about other structures like shared equity and things, if things ever become market rate. So maybe that's something to consider as you go forward.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
So, what would you like to do?
So, well, I would just like to say, I would just like to say first and foremost that, I think some of the comments on the size is, I understand. If I were on the board, I think the previous round, I think there would have been different conversations and questions happening, and I know my colleagues probably would agree. Maria and Bill, perhaps based on some of your comments, I think you would also agree with that. But as Councilwoman McNamara said, I think that based on where we are now, if there is no funding from the town, I worry about how the project will be able to secure funding from the county as well and some other sources. So I do prefer affordable housing in perpetuity. I think that we do need to make sure that we're clarifying that as per CHF actions and guidance going forward. I think that we need to really look hard at that, this board. But from my vantage point, I see this as an issue of fairness. And I know that when I sat down earlier on with my colleagues and some of the folks from NRP, one of the issues that I brought to them was the number of units in perpetuity that I would like to see more. And they did make those adjustments, and I am grateful for that, because I think there would have been some issues if the number of units in perpetuity was less.
Did they, or wasn't that required by our code, the 16 units? I think that's required,
I think it's required
by the code.
But I think it required not only an indication from the board members to the group, the developers, but also the collaboration that had gone on between NRP and the CHF Advisory Committee. And I want to thank you for all your work on this. I know this was not an easy one, and I'm sure there were some painstaking conversations that had to happen. I also want to thank our housing director, Kara Back. I know that you did a lot of work on this too. There was some things that needed to be clarified, but I do want to say that I do think out of fairness, we should really make sure that we are moving this along. And I think at the same time too, I'd like to really highly suggest that NRP does everything that they can to make sure they're in communication and conversation with the school district. I think that's critically important at this juncture. So with that said, I'd like to, I don't know what my colleague prefers. I'm happy to close it, and it's not on for adoption today. So I think we would schedule it for the last, either the first or last meeting in February.
We would just
So it's the
put on another
14th or the
resolution
20th.
whenever we put on a resolution.
No, I'm sorry.
February 11th.
The 11th or 25th.
We could do the 11th.
Well, that we would have to put the resolution forward. This is just, we're going to close
I know,
this.
we're just going to close it. Yeah.
Just
So
close it. You don't have to pick a date.
yeah, so I'm gonna make a motion to close it.
But if you want to leave like 2 weeks for comments. Anybody have any additional comments?
Yeah, we'll leave. Yeah, that's a great idea, Supervisor. So we'll add 2 weeks for comment.
I'll
after
second that.
closure.
All in favor?
Aye.
Who's the
Thanks,
second?
everyone.
I was.
2 weeks, yes.
With 2 weeks.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. All right, Madam Clerk, would you please read the notice for the 5th public hearing?
Certainly. Public hearing number 5, to consider improvements to the Hampton Bays Water District pursuant to Town Law 202-B.
All right, so we have today, John Collins from H2M is with us to present on this public hearing.
You ready? Good afternoon, board members, supervisor. Again, my name is John Collins, H2M. I'm here representing Hampton Bays Water District. James Cappers was supposed to be here, but unfortunately something came up in the water district and they couldn't make it, so I'm here.
Welcome.
I'm here to present the 2025 capital improvements plan for the water district. It consists of 2 projects. One being the water meter replacement, which is a continuation of a capital project that we've done for the past 3 years. This year, they are looking for $500,000, which will go directly to the replacement and installation of water meters. And the second project is has to do with water distribution system upgrades. In particular, it's the installation and modification to the booster pump station at their plant number 2. Both of these projects were included in the 10-year capital plan when it was published in 2020, I think it was. And they'll be looking for an additional $100,000 for that second project, the distribution work.
Mm-hmm. Now, James did come to a work session and talk to us about this also. Yeah. Well, I didn't have any questions about it. I don't know if anybody else on the board did.
I think it's a good
Project.
project. It has to get done.
There's no cards, but Kevin, is there anyone on Zoom for this public hearing? All right, well, if there's nothing,
Nobody ever asks us.
Sorry to make you sit through the,
not that we don't appreciate you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, John.
All right,
Thank you,
thanks. I move to close the public hearing.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right.
All right, Madam Clerk, please read the notice for the 6th public hearing.
Public hearing number 6 for local law
Thanks, Kel.
amending
Sit
chapter
down.
264 entitled Public Assembly Licensing of, in order to reflect current practices of the town, clarify language, and enhance enforcement ability by adding a suspension provision.
Good afternoon again, Assistant Town Attorney Sean Cambridge. So we had done a full work session on this. This is a rather important piece of legislation because it is codifying the current practices for about 15 to 20 years of the town of Southampton. This is significant because it allows our enforcement partners to act for state liquor authority in particular. Revocation of a public assembly permit is an automatic inquiry, so we want to make sure we're following our own process. In addition, if someone, say I switch hats here and I'm a defense attorney trying to sue the town, we want to make sure we followed our own process. We don't want to have liability and be overturned simply because our code does not match our practice. So we did a rather extensive work session on this. Are there any questions tonight?
No, we did do couple work sessions, right? And we made some revisions, and thank you for working with the board to come up with the current format of the law. I feel comfortable with it. If anybody has any concerns?
I'm good with it.
I'm good.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Sean.
Just a minute. Is anyone on Zoom?
Oh.
Kevin? All right. Thank you, Sean.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sean.
I move to close the public hearing.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Public hearing number 7 to consider amending the residence district's table of dimensional regulations to clarify distance from the street, setbacks for accessory buildings and structures.
All right. These are 4 in a row. Katie Garvin.
Hey, Katie.
Hello.
Hi.
I have a sinus infection right now, so my voice is a little nuts. I've had all day to work on it. It's not getting better. And the chief building inspector is also out sick, so we have Dave Kanji. Are you a deputy now or principal? Principal building inspector, so
Hi,
he's
Dave.
filling in as well. He's familiar with most of these because we kind of went over
And
them.
we had a work session on that.
We
we
did have
did.
a work
We did.
session, yes.
Mhm.
All right, so I'm sorry. The first one is distance from street, I believe. Good afternoon, Katie Garvin, Assistant Town Attorney. I'm here today with Dave Kanji, Principal Building Inspector, to propose several code amendments that we discussed back in December. The first is to clarify front lot line setbacks for accessory buildings and structures. If you look at section 33011 of the town code, which is kind of like that long, remember the chart that I had handed out before to you guys? That pretty much establishes all of the setbacks for dwellings in the town of Southampton and all the different residence zones, and it also establishes accessory buildings and structure setbacks. It does not list what we would call front yard setbacks. Instead, it calls it distance from street setbacks. On most properties, this is not problematic because the front yard is the street. So distance from the street is the distance from the front yard lot line. However, for waterfront lots, as we discussed at the work session, where the water is considered the front yard, the distance from street setback set forth in the town code would apply instead to the rear yard. Thus, there is no true front lot line setback articulated. As such, that's what this code amendment does. It pretty much crosses out distance from street and instead says distance from front lot line. This is a type 2 pursuant to SECRA. We referred this to the Suffolk County Planning Commission, who said it was a matter for local determination, and we referred it to the planning board, as is required for all amendments in Chapter 330, and they support the amendment.
And just to clarify, this is just for accessory structures.
Buildings and structures, correct.
Not
Tennis
the
courts, pickleball courts, pools, anything like that. And we already have the side yard setbacks, we already have the rear yard setbacks. This will capture the front from the street when you're
From the water.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Well, no, this is only for accessory buildings and structures. Yep. Because the principal has front yard setbacks, but the
Yeah.
distance from the street is correct. 33011 for the accessory buildings and structures is the one that says distance from the street.
And this will be helpful in the department to get.
Yes. Well, this will be particularly helpful. There's been a lot of people complaining about this when they want to put pools on waterfront properties. And we send them to the ZBA because we say that you are violating the front yard setback, but really it's the distance from street. And it went to the ZBA on an appeal, and the ZBA said distance from street means distance from street. It doesn't mean front yard.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Does anybody have any questions, Katie, on this?
Nope.
I don't have any cards. Kevin, is anyone on Zoom? Okay.
Don't sit.
Then I move to close the public hearing.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Public hearing number 8, to consider amending the town code as it relates to height and pyramid calculations.
Good afternoon. Katie Garvin, Assistant Town Attorney. I'm here today with Principal Building Inspector Dave Kanji to discuss this code amendment, which we also had had for a work session back in December. This proposed amendment clarifies language in the town code as it relates to calculating and establishing pyramid compliance, and it also eliminates diagrams in the town code that are inapplicable and have been inapplicable for a long time. For some time, there has been some confusion in the town code as to how pyramids should be calculated. Typically, architects, local surveyors call the building department. They pretty much advise them on how to calculate it. But we really wanted to build that language into the town code because unless you had this little blurb, you wouldn't know that you had to use this NAVD 88 reference system, which we talked about at the work session. That is basically a system used to measure elevations in North America. Apparently it replaced, I Googled this, it replaced something that was in place in 1929. So that's pretty much what this is. If you look at the language, what we did was we referenced the NAVD 1988. We also took out this language that talked about the existing natural grade because we would say we wanted to know the average elevation of the existing natural grade, but then we put in parentheses before any fill had been or is proposed to be placed thereon, but it didn't also capture if you were digging a hole. So even though we kind of were inferring that that was there, we just took out that language and basically said the average elevation of the natural grade prior to any site disturbance, and then we refer to this NAVD 1988 datum. And then if you go on there, we talk about that same language a little bit in 33084D, and then we cross off, it's harder to tell with the black font, but we cross off those two diagrams that, if you recall, Sean was saying he didn't even know when they were put in there, when they came from.
Yeah.
And I think Dave can confirm that they are. Here, come on up. Come on up. Come on up, Dave.
Yeah, basically the diagrams are totally inaccurate. I've been with the town for 15 years.
Please identify yourself for the record.
Dave Kanji, Principal Building Inspector.
Thank you.
Okay. So basically the diagrams have been totally inaccurate since I've been here. I mean, basically what we do is we take average natural grade at the closest to the road, take those 2 points at the corner where the house is going to be, and we use that to establish pyramid. We carry that out to the property lines, and we go up with a 45-degree angle up to 32 feet, and that's how we calculate the pyramid.
Then people are still gonna come in to ask you how to do it, so.
Yeah, well, hopefully not. Hopefully this will make it a little bit clearer, because a lot of people would go by the diagram that we had, which was totally inaccurate.
And I'm guessing it's mostly architects that are calculating this.
Yeah, well, primarily. You know, but that's basically what we have. So this will just make it a lot more accurate and true to what we actually do.
And the surveyors.
Yeah, exactly. That's what surveyors. But a lot of times it's the architect, because they take what they have, and that's where they have to diagram and give us the elevations.
I like this. It clears it up.
It is. It
Yeah.
does.
I just had a note on here from the work session where it says, you know, established by a New York State licensed professional surveyor or engineer. Were we gonna add the language or engineer?
It's in there.
Oh, it is, okay, good. I don't have any other questions. Thank you. Okay, is there anyone on Zoom? Kevin? All right, well, thank you then. I move to close the public hearing.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Public hearing number 9, to consider amending Town Code 330-183.4 to correctly reference section on the screening of dumpsters.
Good afternoon, Assistant Town Attorney Katie Garvin. I'm here today with Dave Kanji, Principal Building Inspector, to go over a proposed code amendment that we discussed back in December's work session. This one was brought to me by one of the building inspectors who just noticed that there was a typo. Marjorie Riley apparently works on a lot of the commercial compliance certifications, and she noticed that one of the things that she needed to check on before she issued a commercial compliance certification is that the dumpsters are screened properly. But when she went to that section of the town code, which is 330-183.4, the screening of dumpsters actually refers to a section on residential dwellings and not on dumpsters. So this crosses off that residential section and adds 330-109B4, which is the screening of dumpsters.
Housekeeping.
This is a
Okay.
type 2 pursuant to SECRA, and the planning board supports it, and Suffolk County Planning Commission said it's a matter for local determination.
Very good. Thank you. Anybody have any questions?
Nope. To screen the dumpsters.
Kevin, is anyone on Zoom for this? All right, very good. Thanks. I move to close this public hearing.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right. And last but not least,
Public hearing number 10, to consider amending Town Code Article 16, non-conforming uses, buildings, and structures in connection with certificates for pre-existing non-conforming uses.
Good afternoon, Assistant Town Attorney Katie Garvin. I'm here today with Principal Building Inspector Dave Kanji to discuss the last of my code amendments that we went over in the December work session. This proposed code amendment is to move the determination of a pre-existing non-conforming use from the Building Department to the Zoning Board of Appeals. I just kind of wanted to give you a little background on this. I'm sure you already know this because you guys have all seen a lot of non-conforming uses since you've been here. But in October of 1957, the town code was adopted, and it set forth all of the uses that are permitted in various zones in the town. Any use that existed prior to the adoption of the town code that does not comply with those set forth are considered pre-existing non-conforming, and pursuant to case law, are entitled to continue absent amortization. Our town code also sets forth limits on these expansion of these uses, provides for guidance on their abandonment if they are not continued for a certain amount of time. Many of these non-conforming uses in the town do not have certificates issued, whether for the buildings or structures since they predate zoning or for the use itself. What we've come to learn is that it's pretty simple for the building department to determine whether or not the building or structure predates zoning, because they can go out and take a look at it. They can look at surveys, see if it's been there before. They can look at aerials. They can kind of look at some of the fixtures in the building, and they don't seem to be very difficult. But what we are finding is that with some of the non-conforming uses, and I don't know how many are left in the town that don't have certificates, because they don't have certificates, but what we're finding is that it's more difficult for property owners to secure that proof, right? I mean, typically they try to get affidavits, but they really do need to secure affidavits from people who have known about the use since prior to 57. And that's become very, very difficult since that was like 68 years ago. So what this proposed local law does is it moves those applications to the Zoning Board of Appeals. So if adopted, if somebody didn't have a certificate of occupancy for their pre-existing non-conforming use, they would make an application to the Zoning Board of Appeals, and the Zoning Board of Appeals would have a hearing and just listen to all of the facts and the documents and the testimony that typically the building department would listen to. But the building department really isn't even getting testimony, right? They're just kind of looking at documentation and, like I said, some affidavits.
So this takes it out of the hands of the chief building inspector?
It does. And I did hear a little bit pushback on this because people have sort of been feeling that it used to be an administrative function and now it's going to be a full-blown application that they have to make to the zoning board. But
however, Katie, and to that, however, if there's uncertainty of a project that's brought before town, whether or not there is, a pre-existing use that's associated with it and it's unclear, the zoning board is going to be able to flesh that out more concretely, right?
no, they definitely will. And that was kind of my point. What I was going to say was when people have kind of been giving me pushback on this, what I was going to say is it's no longer even administrative for the chief building inspector, because it's not like he can say, oh, 3 affidavits and 4 aerials and boom, the evidence is there. It's much more difficult for anybody to establish this. And there's also periods in the town code that talk about abandonment, right? So anybody who owns the property isn't going to address whether or not it's been abandoned. So that's what we're talking
So the
about.
pushback on this I have heard is, how long does it take to get on the calendar for the ZBA?
Listen, it does take a while to get on the ZBA calendar, but I can say with something like this, I would imagine it would be sooner because there's no building department really review. You're not looking at surveys, you're not looking at
Well, so that would be my question,
building
like, would
plans.
there be a way to get this on, say, the next available calendar? Instead of having them wait for a whole process of, because it's still gonna have to be a public hearing.
Yep.
You're still gonna have to do all that.
Yep.
You're still gonna have to notice all of that, so that's gonna take time. So is there any way to basically, because this is just basically a cut and dry issue, it's not, like you said, you're not looking at plans, you're not.
Yep, you gotta come up here, Dave.
Dave Kanji, Principal Building Inspector. Basically, these are not the basic applications. If it's an old house that was built prior to 1957, that's not going to get sent to the ZBA. It's more of those unique applications when you have a commercial use or mixed use or something like that. Stuff that's unique that, we would get pushed back on and saying, why did you do that? So that's kind of why we're
Yeah, I agree with the premise, and I don't think there's. I was going to ask how many of these about there are a year. There aren't many, right?
Probably not a lot.
So, but my question was, and that's the pushback I've gotten was, normally we could just go to the chief building inspector and get a determination. Now we have to go get on the ZBA calendar, which can take several months, and then go through a hearing process. So my question is, could it just go on the next available calendar?
You say, could there be like a special list?
If there's like 1 or 2 of these a year, and we're now expanding this process, and we're adding the calendaring time. You know what I mean? We're not. They're not coming in every month.
Correct. Yes. No. I mean, I can't guarantee. I can't guarantee that, but I could certainly talk to Sean about that. I've told people before, when they have a simple application that's a single and separate determination where there's something that doesn't necessarily require a lot of review. I was like, just let me know, and then I can say to Candace, like, if we have space, we can put these simple ones on. I mean, certainly the hearing itself won't be simple, but the review, the town labor it takes to review it is minimal because it's not whether or not it's complete. It's you're submitting your best proof.
Yeah, I mean that's really my only concern is taking it from an administrative go in, get what you need to months to get on a calendar to have a public hearing to,
Yep, I don't disagree with that. I will just say though, if Sean were here, he would tell you that even when he reviews these, it takes 6 months, 7 months. It takes a while for him to go through the volume of documentation because it's never cut and dry. It's very difficult to get affidavits from 1957. So he'll show me an affidavit and I'll be like, they can only go back to 71 or
Running out of witnesses.
Yeah.
And sometimes it involves additional research that the ZBA can more adequately kind of
Correct.
Peruse. And
yeah.
I would like to just say that this is really awesome. This resolution, and I think that a lot of our hamlets will be greatly appreciative of the board adopting this and moving forward with it because you do have bad actors, and I'm not saying that it's there's so many of them, but you do have them, and I think that this will resolve a lot of concerns that maybe they're not providing the adequate documentation. Now there's that extra layer of assessment that's being done at the ZBA level, and I think that's great. So I really want to commend you, I want to commend the building department for really looking at this and coming up with this.
Yeah, well, I just will say to the public that's watching this that the impetus for this was not was not to challenge any property owners, you know, rights or their applications. It was really just kind of like to unburden the building department with issues that are really, really complicated. And I will say, many times when we've seen pre-existing CO applications made to the building department, after waiting for however long it took the building department to review it, and after possibly issuing a CO for what they had hoped for or a version of it, it was then appealed to the zoning board of appeals by the neighbors anyways. So if anything, this might expedite that process. I don't know.
There are a number of benefits potentially from this. Is this on for adoption today?
No, it's not. We have to do secra. It's an unlisted action. I did hear from the Suffolk County Planning Commission, which again said local determination. The planning board said something about planning board supports implementing a new process which involves the public in determining pre-existing non-conforming uses, however, finds that the amendment warrants further discussion, which is what I would say we're doing. I would also say, again, the reason for this wasn't to involve the public. It will happen as a coincidence because they will be noticed. But again, it was really more just to kind of capture these difficult non-conforming uses.
So are these, if it's just more than one housing unit per lot?
This would capture those as well, if
But
you have two
what if
houses.
it's only one house?
If it's only one
say
house,
it doesn't?
correct. If it's only one house that has pre-existing non-conforming setbacks, that would just go to the building department. This is to
But is
capture
that
the
carved out
uses.
in the wording?
Well, that's not a pre-existing it's on the non-conforming use. This only captures non-conforming uses. So 2 houses is a non-conforming use. A transfer station is a
Oh,
non-conforming
right.
use. Can't think of the other ones. There's
Sand mine.
a sand mine is a non-conforming use.
Okay.
That's it.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
When I've seen this done in other municipalities, it's much better. It just shines a lot more light, and it brings people in with facts and circumstances that really make good contributions to the boards.
Yeah. Madam Clerk, may I be added as co-sponsor for this?
Certainly.
And it takes some pressure off the chief building inspector, quite frankly.
Yeah.
It's
Myself too.
This is
Okay, so Kevin, is there anyone on Zoom who'd like to be heard at the public hearing? Okay, then I move to close the public hearing.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And Katie, so you keep track of, when we get the comments back from the planning commissions and when the resolutions can go on.
Yes. I have everything except for the secra, so I'll put resolutions of adoption on for the next meeting.
Thank you for all your
For
work.
all but this
Thank you.
one.
For all but this one? This one you want to wait?
No, I mean, would you have that done too by then?
Sure, for the next meeting.
Do we need, is there any comments we're waiting that we need to leave the hearing open for or no?
No, but we will do the secra. I'll get secra comments and then we'll incorporate those for the next meeting. Yep.
Thank you.
Go home and have some chicken soup.
Yeah, go get some rest.
Thanks, Dave.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dave.
And Michael,
Yes.
I can't add you to the
No?
hearing.
Oh, not yet.
But when the resolution is put forward,
Yeah.
Please
that's
do.
when you're.
Please do. Thank you.
All right, well, that brings us to the public portion. And I do have one card. Lorraine, is it Pacilio? Come on up.
Good afternoon, everybody.
Hello, Counselor.
Thank you for your patience, boy, you sat there a
That's
lot
okay.
today.
I always seem to come up at the end, but that's what can I do? As you may recall, my name is Lorraine Pacelio. I'm the president of the Bayview Pines Civic Association, located close to the Long Neck Boulevard Beach in Flanders. At the December 10th Town Board meeting, members of our organization spoke here in support of Town Board Resolution number 48196, requesting a water quality improvement project proposed by the Highway Department for stormwater remediation be approved. As you may also remember, this resolution was approved, resolution number 2024-1417. However, we have brought to your attention that although my organization and neighbors had complained about the excessive flooding, drainage issues, and the problem with the runoff from the street running back into the bay for well over a decade, not one person contacted anyone in my organization about this very large pending project. At the December board meeting, we said we needed to know the details of the project before fully supporting it, and you advised that you would approve the funding, subject to input from the community. We also requested representatives who could provide us with the details, meet with our members and neighbors at our next general meeting, which was held on January 24th, Friday, and everyone assured me that this would happen. Our meeting did take place, and although no one from this board nor highway attended, we did have a successful meeting with the town trustees present, who are very knowledgeable regarding this beach and project, and although they are not behind the project as written, they offered many alternatives. There were over 45 taxpayers and longtime residents at our meeting as a result of extensive community outreach that we did. That's a lot of people from a small community. That's how important this project is to us. But as I said, no one from highway and no one from this board could make it, despite the promises. At the end of the meeting, it was undisputed that the project was not good for our neighborhood nor for the beach, as written. As stated, the town trustees strongly agreed and said that they would write a letter of support on our behalf to change this project and offer various alternatives, considering the many issues that were discussed at our meeting.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, I am therefore again requesting a sit-down meeting with representatives from this board, including the supervisor's office, the highway department, and a representative from the engineering company, together with the town trustees, and my organization's beach committee, as the project must be revisited before it moves forward. To not allow the trustees and community's input would be a complete waste of very valuable water quality resources for a project that will fail as is. My neighborhood has waited a long time for their day to come, and they deserve the help this project can provide. Please make sure the project is placed on hold until everyone has time to weigh in, and please confirm this via email to my organization. We are requesting an immediate response to this second request, and I am asking you all individually and as a board to set up a meeting with those concerned, including our beach committee, and advise me by February 10th, which is 2 months from the date we originally requested the meeting.
Well, I
Thank you.
imagine when we get that letter from the trustees that, you know, Superintendent McCardle will be open to hearing what they have to say, because I think he was the one that, I don't know if he arranged for them to go to the meeting or not, but he was aware of it.
No, we invited the trustees. Charlie was supposed to come to our meeting and backed out at the last minute and said that the new trustee knew about the project. But they didn't know specifically about this project, but they can read and they understood, and they know the beach problems, because they're very familiar, of course, with the problems there. So I don't know why Highway wasn't able to send somebody or, you know, consult with the trustees, but I just want to make sure that everybody's considerations are taken into account before the project moves forward, and we need to have a meeting.
Yeah, I mean, I had emailed you, I had received an email that Charlie McCardle was coming, a trustee was coming, and you were all, you know, and I think you also said that the deputy supervisor was coming.
Possibly.
So you know, you had a pretty full meeting, and I didn't even know, you know, I knew you wanted to speak to me about the parking restrictions, but I just assumed if you guys were going to spend the entire meeting discussing the end of the road project, I didn't really need to be there. It is a highway project, and I think, you know, hearing that a trustee was coming to present on his project, I don't think the highway superintendent, you know, felt, you know, he was coming to present his project. He felt like you had reached out to the trustees and they were sending somebody to talk on his project. So I don't know where I know he had a conversation with you. I don't know where you guys left off your conversation.
He hung up on me.
But it's a at the end of the day, it's a highway project. So he would be the one making the ultimate call.
Okay, well, we need to involve him in with the trustees who are against the project as is, and as our community is. I don't know how to make that happen, because I'm not his boss. I don't know if he answers to the board.
We're not his boss either. He's a separately elected official.
So, you know, it'll be a waste of funds if it goes ahead the way it is without
hopefully,
support.
You know, we'll see what Trustee Parsons puts in the letter. You know, maybe there are adjustments that make sense to highway to incorporate into the plan.
Well, one of the problems that the trustees said was the coordination between the departments, you know, that everybody has to be on board at the same time to the changes and requests. So that's what I'm trying to ask for, a meeting to that effect. Can you arrange a meeting of the town trustees and the highway?
Yeah, we can reach out to do that. Yeah, between me and Cindy, we can do that. I'll take 2 of us to get them both in a room.
And no promises.
Yeah. Yeah, let's do that. Well, so did Matt indicate when he thought he'd be sending his recommendations?
He didn't say, but he,
We'll
we'll
follow
reach
up.
out to him. We haven't reached out. It was exhausting getting ready for this meeting, and then very disappointing that
Did he
nobody
come up
showed
with an alternative to the plan?
A few different alternatives, but nothing detailed,
Okay.
like the project. Of course, the plan, the project is very detailed, the plan.
But he didn't. Did he give a reason for why he didn't like the engineer's plan?
He said that it's gonna fail. The water is gonna come straight across the project. The railings are gonna kill the wildlife, the way that it's in the drawing.
Do you know if you've had Marty Shea come out and take a
We
look
called
at
Marty Shea also. We've made extensive phone
and,
calls.
and do you know what Marty Shea's determination
No
was?
response.
No response?
It's not his area.
Yeah, it's not.
Well, I know that the highway department has, worked with Marty Shea on stuff like this with, end of road flooding. I mean, I don't know if it's, obviously it sounds like we need to re-engage with Superintendent McCardle and see what the, where we go from here.
I mean, it was designed by an I mean, I don't think. No offense to the trustee that came to your meeting.
Right.
He's not an engineer.
Right.
This was designed by an engineer, and they do these projects throughout the town.
But they didn't consult with the people that live there and see the water coming in off the bay. They never witnessed a northeasterner coming across that road and to see the amount of water that comes through. It will become, the trustee said, it'll become a mosquito basin. That's what it's going to become because of the water that'll come down there. So, like I said, my neighborhood has waited a long time for this help, and we finally see something in the distance, and it's not going to work the way it is, and we can't seem to coordinate enough support to revise and to let people, be aware that there's a problem and we could fix it maybe. Just got to sit down and talk to people.
We'll work on it.
I think we did have a work session on it.
No, did we have a work session or just the
Yeah, 'cause
public
they wanted
hearing?
a
I think we had
handicap
the
area.
public hearing.
That was a
and then
public
the
hearing.
Just the
community
public
came
hearing.
in and
Yeah.
said,
That was
what
December
about the
10th,
handicap
when I was here.
accessibility?
Yeah. I think there might be some project also going on at Royal Avenue, which is, there's a canal, then there's Long Neck Boulevard, the beach at the end of Long Neck Boulevard, then there's a canal, and then on the other side of that canal is Royal Avenue. They've had a buildup on their end of that road also. There's a little beach landing, and I saw something in a prior town board meeting that requested funds for surveying, etc., and I foiled the project detail plans, but I did not receive anything. I have to foil it again. Just like we never received the plans also, the authorization to make the plans for this project at Long Neck Boulevard. We just saw that there was a notice of public hearing after the fact. Everything was done. Here, we're going to get it approved, But we want to know, the preliminary cost also, and to see what the project was originally. So we did foil all that information, but you may
What
want
do
to
you
look
mean
into.
originally? There was a different plan?
I don't know. I guess there was some type of request made for funding so that they would get McLean Engineering to do a plan or whatever you call
I
it,
think there were
survey.
communications, if I'm not mistaken. The whole board was CC'd, I think, on some of those communications between the Bayview Pines folks and the highway superintendent and other member officials in the town. I think that's where that came from.
Yeah.
So there has been back and forth and some response to, it seems, but I get what you're saying. You would like someone to take a really hard look at this.
Well, we have to do something to stop it, and I don't know if the town trustee's letter is going to be sufficient. So that's why I'm bringing it to your attention, and I'm requesting a sit-down meeting again so that everybody's issues can be presented and everybody can understand. Because sometimes, you play telephone tag, and by the time it gets over here, it's way different than when it started out. So that's why. So appreciate it.
All right,
Thank
thank
you.
you.
Thank you.
Kevin, is there anyone on Zoom for public portion?
No, there was a
Can we start the resolutions without the supervisor? Can we, Kim says no.
supervisor. Heard it from the boss.
Wait, close public portion?
Well, we
Ah.
She'll be right back.
You'll be dead here. Oh, Michael said.
Can we
We're
close it while we're
trying
waiting?
A dual voting here.
I'll make a motion to close public portion.
Can you do that?
Yeah.
You have
We
a quorum.
Okay.
Somebody has to second it.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Then make a motion to go into
Town board resolutions?
town board resolution.
You don't need a motion, we just do it.
You should motion.
Yeah, if we could just wait till she gets back.
Yeah,
'cause we're-
I just wanted to
Now
close
we're
public
doing-
portion.
We're taking
Somebody
votes
wants to-
digitally on one side and on paper, so
Got it.
we don't wanna,
We'll wait now.
You
wanna
don't
try and do
wait.
it cleanly
Yes.
if we could.
Michael's gonna sing us a song.
No.
We're
Can
still
you sing,
live.
Mike?
You can find me on Spotify
We're still
Yeah.
live.
and all streaming services
Oh, yeah?
throughout the world.
You're
Yeah,
singing?
he's got a, throughout the world. I like
What-
that, yeah.
What style of music are we
Oh,
talking about?
yeah.
Got a little Elvis going on, or Bob Dylan?
I try to do a little bit.
A little Springsteen.
No.
Talking Heads.
Well, we could talk about, oh, here she comes.
Okay. Oh, nobody,
Nobody came on.
So we closed it.
they bailed.
They saw you left, so they they hung up.
Mike jumped in your seat so fast you would have had.
No, I didn't.
Did you hit the gavel
I
too?
enjoyed it.
No, I
I
made
just
sure.
seconded it.
All in favor, or did someone do that?
We
too?
already did it.
They did that too. Yeah, they tried to go ahead.
Dare you?
See, you could be replaced.
Okay.
Mm, I like the sound of
It's
that.
okay.
All right, let's go forward with the resolution. I have so many, I needed to have some water.
Town Board Resolution 2025-94, authorized purchase asphalt and bituminous material used in Suffolk County contracts.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Town Board Resolution 2025-96.
Hold on.
Who's
Hold
in
on.
charge here? What's going
Town
on?
Board Resolution 95 of 2026. 2025.
All right.
Everybody's
Authorized purchase of liquid blended phosphate from Massapequa Water District contract with Caris Corporation.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Town Board Resolution 2025-96 to authorize the purchase of safety shoes from
Second.
Suffolk County contract with Safeguard Safety Shoe Company.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Town Board Resolution 2025-97 to authorize purchases and installation fencing. What's happening? With Residential Fences Corp. using Suffolk County contract and Eastern Suffolk BOCES contract.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Town Board Resolution 2025-98 to authorize purchases from Clark Equipment Company doing business as Bobcat Company using the Sourcewell contract.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Yes.
Town Board Resolution 2025-99, authorized purchase of a Komatsu American using Sourcewell contract.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Town Board Resolution 2025-100 to authorize purchases of electrical supplies from Turtle and Hughes, Inc. using Suffolk County contract.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Town Board Resolution 2025-101, authorizing purchases of fuel management, EV, and GPS solutions from EJ Ward, Inc. using a Sourcewell contract.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Town Board Resolution 2025-102 to authorize purchases of furniture, all types except for hospital room and patient handling from the New York State contracts.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Town Board Resolution 2025-103, co-sponsored with Councilman McMahon, authorized purchase of groundkeeping, repair, parts, and service and accessory used Suffolk County contracts with Northeast Equipment, Inc., Mortgage Enterprise, and All Island Equipment Corp., and Mavisi Equipment Corp., Company, Inc., and Fisher Turf, Inc., and Storm Tractor Company.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Town Board Resolution 25-104, Authorized purchase of guardrails furnished and stored from United Fence Guardrail Corp. Using Suffolk County contracts.
On the motion, Bill, are some of these going to include, do you know, wooden rails? Or are they just strictly metal?
I think it goes both ways, but I
Okay.
can find out for you.
All right, second.
All in favor?
I think in some areas they put wood, in some areas they put metal.
Okay.
Depends where it is.
The speed on the road too.
Yeah, on the road. Town Board Resolution 2025-105, co-sponsored with Councilman Isola. Authorized purchase of heavy-duty truck parts and parts and labor to repair heavy equipment from trucks using Town of Brookhaven contract.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Town Board Resolution 2025-106 to authorize purchases of maintenance, repair, and install for radios and miscellaneous equipment for emergency vehicles.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Town Board Resolution 2025-107, authorized the purchase of motor vehicle oil and lubes and fluid using Town of Huntington contract.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Town Board Resolution 2025-108, authorized purchase of snow equipment and parts and accessory and cutting edges using Town of Huntington contract.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Town Board Resolution 2025-109 to authorize purchases of vehicles, warning lights, light bars, sirens, consoles, and accessories, discount off manufacturer's list price using Rockland County contracts.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Town Board Resolution 110 of 2025, authorizing the purchase of Western Products snow and ice equipment using Sourcewell contract.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Town Board Resolution 111 of 2025, co-sponsored with Councilman Pell. Authorize supervisor to sign a contract extension for disposal and recycling services for unprocessed construction and demolition debris with Winter Brothers Recycling of Long Island LLC.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. Town Board Resolution 2025-112, authorized supervisor to sign contract with L.K. McLean, Associate Engineer and Survey, DPC, to provide survey and engineer for realignment of Sabonic in the intersection of Tuckahoe Road and Barker's Island Road and Tuckahoe Lane.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Town Board Resolution 2025-103, also co-sponsored with Councilman Isola, authorized supervisor to sign a contract with L.K. McLean, Associate Engineer to Survey, DPC, to provide survey and engineer service for the realignment of Stony Hill Road in the intersection of Noyak.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. Town Board Resolution 114 of 2025, co-sponsored with Councilman Pell. Authorize supervisor to sign a contract with PG Environmental Services, Inc. to provide professional services for well installation and monitoring at North Sea Hampton Bays and West Hampton Waste Management Facilities.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Town Board Resolution 2025-115, co-sponsored by Councilmember Isilli, to authorize the supervisor to sign an agreement with Suffolk County for the distribution of STOA funds for the operation of the South Fork Commuter Connection Bus Service.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Town Board Resolution 2025-116, to authorize the supervisor to sign any and all documents with Source Pass Contemporary LLC to provide immediate assistance on a bank hours basis to resolve town's network connectivity issues.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Town Board Resolution 2025-117, to authorize the supervisor to sign a contract with Surrey Fee for legal education services.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Town Board Resolution 118 of 2025, co-sponsored with Councilman Pell. Authorize the purchase of general construction services from the Land Tech Group, Inc. using Town of Huntington General Construction Requirements Contract for Riverside Sewage Treatment Plant clearing.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. Town Board Resolution 119 of 2025, authorize the purchase of motor fuels from Omnia Partners Cooperative Contract with Truman Arnold Companies.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Town Board Resolution 2025-120, to authorize the purchase of tree removal, stump grinding, and trimming services using the Town of Brookhaven contract with Looks Great Services.
Second and co-sponsor, Madam Clerk.
All in favor?
Aye.
Town Board Resolution 2025-102, co-sponsored with Councilwoman McMahon, authorize the purchase of vehicle and equipment parts and related to product from NYSOGS contract with United Water Supply of Syracuse West, Inc., and Ellett Order Supply Company, Inc., DBA Factory Motor Parts and Parts authorized by LLC DBA Parts Authority.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Town Board Resolution 2025-122 to authorize the purchases of emergency road tire service and tires, passenger cars, light, medium, and heavy-duty trucks, off-road equipment using Suffolk County contracts with Barnwell House of Tires.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Town Board Resolution 2025-123, co-sponsored by the full board, to authorize the supervisor to execute a 2025 Park District grant with Watermill Museum for the maintenance and upkeep of the Watermill Museum.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Town Board Resolution 2025-124, co-sponsored with Councilman Isola, authorize supervisor to extend contract with amendment with L.K. McLean, Associate Engineer and Survey DPC, to provide engineer and technician service associated with the town FEMA Advanced Assistance Funding for a feasible study and material support of a grant application for FEMA Hazardous Migration Grant Program.
Second.
Not quite done yet.
Sorry.
HMGP for Dune Road.
Second.
Thank you.
All in favor?
Town Board Resolution 2025-125, co-sponsored with the whole board, authorize supervisor to extend contract amendment with the Village of West Hampton Beach and MRJ Industry Ltd. for electric portion of the Governor John Adams Dixie Windmill Restoration Project.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Town Board Resolution 2025-126, co-sponsored by Councilwoman McNamara, to authorize the supervisor to execute a contract with Edward Wolfersdorf to assist with the review of backlog permit plans in the Department of Land Management.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Town Board Resolution 2025-127 to authorize the supervisor to execute a public safety answering point agreement with the County of Suffolk.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. Town Board Resolution 128 of 2025, authorize the supervisor to execute an agreement with Fox Land Surveying for surveys for 1517 and 19 Lewis Road, East Quogue.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Town Board Resolution 129 of 2025, co-sponsored with Councilwoman McNamara, authorize the supervisor to execute an agreement with Thomson Reuters for the use of the Clear Government Investigations Advanced Program by the town's Code Enforcement Department.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Town Board Resolution 2025-130 to authorize the supervisor to sign a 2025 agreement with Munistat Services, Inc.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Town Board Resolution 2025-131, authorize supervisor to sign a sole source contract with Smith Metalworks of Newark, Inc.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Town Board Resolution 2025-132, co-sponsored by Councilman Pell, to authorize the supervisor to sign any and all documents for shared services with the New York State Department of Transportation.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Town Board Resolution 2025-133, co-sponsored by Councilwoman McNamara, to recall and amend Resolution Number 2024-1440, award and to authorize the supervisor to sign a contract with Ecotech Management, Inc. for electronic waste removal, recycling, and disposal programs.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Town Board Resolution 2025-134 to recall and amend Town Board Resolution Number 2025-48 award and authorize the supervisor to sign contracts with Tonso Automotive, Inc. for the replacement parts for Chevrolet General Motors.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Town Board Resolution 2025-135, 2025 notice to bidders for removement and recycled disposal of waste of oil.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. Town Board 2025-136, a bidder. 2025 notice to bid for the scrap tire recycling service.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Town Board Resolution 2025-137 to amend the 2025 adopted budget for human resources.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Town Board Resolution 2025-138 to amend the 2025-2029 capital budget and add capital project Red Creek Park sidewalks.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Town Board Resolution 2025-139 to amend the 2025-2029 capital budget for the Flanders Community Center Outdoor Improvement Project.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Town Board Resolution 2025-140 to authorize the closure of certain capital projects.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. Need a motion to amend Town Board Resolution 141 of 2025
Second to amend.
What's the amendment?
to add Andrew Roof to the Watermill CAC and Diane Sadowski to the Southampton Tuckahoe Shinnecock Hill CAC. I believe Kim and Sunday, you have the names.
Is that
Yes.
CAC functioning?
I guess they're going to start meeting again.
Which one? Watermill?
Southampton.
Shinnecock.
Shinnecock, Southampton.
Oh.
Tuckahoe.
Oh, look how
There's
many,
like
there's
3 of them
already
together.
10 on here.
But I have never seen any of them.
They've
or
never
heard of
they meet very infrequently.
So Andrew is going to join?
No.
Andrew's joining
Watermill.
Watermill.
Oh, he's joining Watermill. Okay.
So there was a second. We need to vote on it.
All in favor?
Aye. Motion to adopt as amended.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Town Board Resolution 2025-142. This is to appoint Disability Advisory Task Force for 2025. I'd like to make an amendment to
Second.
that. Thank you.
What's the
I'd
amendment?
like to add Josh Bellery, Josh, first name Bellery, Bellury. Oh, it's already on there?
You
It should be Josh, yeah, and then also, JoJo got us on there, okay.
You amended it at the
I didn't know it was done. Thank you so much, Madam Clerk,
So
really
is it
appreciate
supposed to
it.
be John or Josh?
Josh.
Okay, so I'm gonna
So that
change
could be the amendment,
Yes.
okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
As amended,
Now you need to move motion to approve as amended.
motion to adopt as amended,
Same second.
All in favor?
Aye. Town Board Resolution 143 of 2025, appoint Trades Advisory Committee for 2025.
second.
All in favor?
Aye. Town Board Resolution 144 of
I'm
2025
sorry,
to
who was
appoint
the
the Trails
second
Advisory Board for
Michael.
2025.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I'll comment that, this is a really important advisory board, and I know a lot of these people do a lot of great work, but personally, I've really, witnessed a lot of the work of Day Dayton. She's just an absolute advocate for preservation and also protecting our trails, so I just wanted to make mention of that. I know a lot of these people are Chip and Ian and some of the other folks here, but I just wanted to make mention of that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Town Board Resolution 2025-145 to authorize additional funds for the payment of legal fees of Farrell Fritz PC.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. Town Board Resolution 146 of 2025, authorize enforcement action at 138 Maggie Drive, East Quogue, Suffolk County Tax Map as indicated.
Second, and I'd like to be co-sponsor.
Myself too.
Yeah, make
The
it the
whole
whole board when we're gonna enforce this action.
Need to vote.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye. Town Board Resolution 147 of 2025, co-sponsored by the entire board, authorize the supervisor to sign the 2025 community program grants.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. Town Board Resolution 148 of 2025, co-sponsored by the entire board, authorize the supervisor to sign 2025 Hamlet Services grants.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. Town Board Resolution 149 of 2025, co-sponsored by the entire board, authorize the supervisor to sign the 2025 Cultural Arts and Recreation grants.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Town Board Resolution 150 of 2025, co-sponsored by the entire board, authorize the supervisor to sign the 2025 Human Services grants.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye, and again, just thank you to Jamie Bowden for doing all of that.
Yeah.
Yes, she does a good job.
Town Board Resolution 2025-151, public interest order in the matter of the increase and improvement of the facilities of the Hampton Bays Water District pursuant to Town Law, Section 202-B.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, and now we're going to embark on all the bond resolutions, so
These
we'll
are all
need a
roll
roll
calls,
call,
right?
right? Okay,
Yes,
so
we
Town
do.
Board Resolution 2025-152, which is the bond authorization for $480,000 for various equipment for the police department.
Second.
Supervisor Moore?
Aye.
Councilwoman McNamara?
Aye.
Councilman Iasili?
Yes.
Councilman Powell?
Yes.
Town Board Resolution 2025-153, bond authorization for $100,000 for improvements at the Hampton Bays Water District design for distribution system.
Second.
Supervisor Moore?
Aye.
Councilwoman McNamara?
Aye.
Councilman Iasili?
Yes.
Councilman Powell?
Aye.
Town Board Resolution 2025-154, bond authorization of $500,000 for the improvement of the Hampton Bays Water District.
Second.
Supervisor Moore?
Aye.
Councilwoman McNamara?
Aye.
Councilman Iasili?
Yes, and co-sponsor?
Councilman Powell?
Yes.
Hold on.
All right, I'm going to withdraw Town Board Resolution 2025-155 because there's a substitution in the walk-ons.
Okay.
You need a second
You're
on that?
withdrawing.
I don't think so. Town Board Resolution 2025-156, bond authorization of $250,000 for the design and studies for revitalization of certain areas of the town.
Second.
On the motion, we were at a civic meeting yesterday with the Hampton Bays community, and this was brought up. And I'm just wondering what various studies these are in connection with, and is there a reason why this is drawn out in a more general manner, or?
I did speak with Dorothy about it. I mean, you're welcome to come on up too, but it's for the Land Management Department for studies for consultants such as the Riverside Overlay District that require secret analysis.
You wanna just?
Well, like I
Yeah, so
said,
that's-
these are various studies for different hamlets. I guess the board wanted to have all the studies done, and we need funding to do that.
But why wouldn't we just lay it out in terms of the
Because
various
I don't,
projects?
they may come up. I mean, 250 was just, maybe more. 250 was the ask, depending on what studies the board
There'll
would
be-
like to, have done.
To Dorothy's point, there's various studies that come up throughout the year that we
Right.
bring forward, and if there's no funding to do those studies, we can't do them.
So is this for a general purposes of?
Well,
when-
it says for various consultants and design professionals for studies such as Riverside Overlay District zoning, just like the supervisor said, mixed use code for hamlet centers, and various, studies that require secret analysis. So it's just various different studies and designs that.
The issue is with the bond authorizations, you have to be fairly specific, but if you get overly specific,
I
you
know
end
you
up
lose the
borrowing money that
I
you
know.
can't.
Correct.
Is that the reason why we're orienting this in a general fashion? So
Well,
just
because
in
it's
case
various.
it
You,
locks
if you
in?
say it's only for Riverside, let's just say
Can't use it
sewer
for anything
district,
else.
then only that money can be only for that study.
Yeah.
If you say various, that
But
means,
wouldn't, in terms of a study of such magnitude, such as the Riverside overlay, wouldn't you want to tie it to that, or?
like I said, this was done specifically requested by land management, because those are
Okay.
land management studies.
Okay.
That
And
study
I
that
wouldn't know
they're doing-
exactly what studies she wants to do.
Okay.
I guess as as the year progresses, you ask for different studies, and she has to come up with
It's like
funding for it.
When
Some
we
people-
have to
borrow, like when we
approve the
borrow
study.
money for road improvements and we don't specify which roads we're improving, it's the same
Correct.
basic principle.
Just like when we do park improvements, if we specify it's only for Red Creek, then if you wanna use it in East Quad, you really can't, because it's specific to that location.
And this doesn't all have to get used this year, correct?
No,
It carries
this is
over.
just authorization. We don't even have to borrow the whole amount. It's just, this is authorization that we can authorize up to $250,000.
We might have paid for the pattern book out of a fund like this.
I can't tell you, probably, yes. Because this is funding that we put in, additional funding. There has been, I don't think we borrowed for the last 2 years, but then we did borrow money for different studies. So yes, probably yes. And this is a supplemental funding to the capital project.
So in terms of like the funding of previous studies, then this is how typically it's it's
Well, it
gone.
depends. If it's at $10,000, that's a little different. But some studies are, they cost $100,000.
Oh, yeah.
So we don't have that in our operating budget because we don't budget those, for those studies because you don't know what studies that, currently. In July, you may say, well, we want to do this study. So this is kind of money setting aside with only 5 years of useful life, just in case. But it
Okay.
rolls over
Thank
if it's
you.
not spent.
Thank you.
So did
Michael,
someone
read-
second that?
I didn't
Second.
hear who the second was. Oh, thank you. Supervisor Moore.
Aye.
Councilwoman McNamara.
Aye.
Councilman Iacilli.
Yes.
Councilman Pell.
Yes.
Town Board Resolution 2025-157, bond authorization of $400,000 for the rehabilitation of various boat ramps.
Second.
On the motion, do we have any idea of what boat ramps are being looked at
So
right
this
now?
this request came from trustees,
Okay.
and they're gonna be paying the debt service.
Ah,
So they
so
have various boat ramps.
It's, you want me to tell you?
If you have any information, that's fine.
Not too much. But when I was a trustee, we were trying to fix a couple in Hampton Bays, and I think one by the college, and maybe East Quogue.
Now, this is also the
Avenue,
supplemental
Lewis,
funding.
and Heath.
So we borrowed money, I
Yes.
believe, 2 years ago. But trustees do pay debt service. They
That's good to
can't
know.
borrow on their own, so they come to the board and then
Yes.
they reimburse us for the
Thanks.
debt
It
service.
shows that we work together.
Thank you.
Supervisor Moore.
Aye.
Councilwoman McNamara.
Aye.
Councilman Iacilli.
Yes.
Councilman Pell.
Aye.
Town Board Resolution 2025-158, bond authorization of $1 million for the reconstruction of town-owned golf course and parking lot.
Second.
Supervisor Moore.
Aye.
Councilwoman McNamara.
Aye.
Councilman Iacilli.
Yes.
Councilman Pell.
Yes.
Town Board Resolution 2025-159, bond authorization of $175,000 for reconstruction of the Bridgehampton Community Center.
Second.
Supervisor Moore.
Aye.
Councilwoman McNamara.
Aye.
Councilman Iacilli.
Yes.
Councilman Pell.
Aye.
Town Board Resolution 2025-160, bond authorization of $200,000 for purchase of garbage truck for parts and recreational department.
Second.
Supervisor Moore.
Aye.
Councilwoman McNamara.
Aye.
Councilman Iacilli.
Yes.
Councilman Pell.
Aye.
Town Board Resolution 2025-161, bond authorization of $400,000 for the acquisition of road, maintenance vehicles, and related equipment.
Second.
Supervisor Moore.
Aye.
Councilwoman McNamara.
Aye.
Councilman Iacilli.
Yes.
Councilman Pell.
Yes.
Town Board Resolution 2025-162, bond authorization of $500,000 for the construction or reconstruction of various town sidewalks.
Second.
Supervisor Moore.
Aye.
Councilwoman McNamara.
Aye.
Councilman Iacilli.
Yes.
Councilman Pell.
Yes.
And that's as determined by
Yeah,
the
it goes-
superintendent.
It goes wherever they need it.
Town Board Resolution 2025-163, bond authorization of $500,000 for improvements to the Hampton Bays Municipal Parking Lot.
Second.
Supervisor Moore.
Aye.
Councilwoman McNamara.
Aye.
Councilman Iacilli.
Yes.
Councilman Pell.
Yes.
And this is going to create many more parking spaces, 17 actually, 17 additional parking spaces, so that's nice.
Because we lost some with the charging systems over there.
Mhm. And whether there's cross-access or not is something we can discuss with have a work session on that. We'll have Nick Jimenez come in and talk to us, and Tom Houghton. Town Board Resolution 2025-164, a bond authorization of $600,000 for construction of storage barn for use by the Highway Department.
Second.
Supervisor Moore.
Aye.
Councilwoman McNamara.
Aye.
Councilman Iacilli.
Yes.
Councilman Pell.
Yes.
Town Board Resolution 2025-165, bond authorization of $630,000 for the purchase of equipment for waste management purposes.
Second.
Supervisor Moore,
Aye.
Councilwoman McNamara,
Aye.
Councilman Iacili.
Yes.
Councilman Powell.
Yes.
Town Board Resolution 2025-166, bond authorization of $700,000 for upgrades to the town-wide radio communication system.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Oh.
Supervisor Moore,
Aye.
Councilwoman McNamara.
Aye.
Councilman Iacili.
Yes.
Councilman Powell.
Aye.
Town Board Resolution 2025-167, bond authorization of $740,000 for the sidewalk and traffic improvements along Noyak Road.
Second.
Supervisor Moore,
Aye.
Councilwoman McNamara.
Aye.
Councilman Iacili.
Yes.
Councilman Powell.
Yes.
Town Board Resolution 2025-168, bond authorization of $1,065,000 for the improvements to the Spionk Shore Dock Facility.
Second.
Supervisor Moore,
Aye.
Councilwoman McNamara.
Aye.
Councilman Iacili.
Yes.
Councilman Powell.
Aye.
Town Board Resolution 2025-169, bond authorization of $1,100,000 for the construction and replacement of existing bulkheads.
Second.
Supervisor Moore,
Aye.
Councilwoman McNamara.
Aye.
Councilman Iacili.
Yes.
Councilman Powell.
Yes.
Town Board Resolution 2025-170, bond authorization for $1,660,000 for the improvements to various town parks, playgrounds, and recreational areas.
Second.
Supervisor Moore,
Aye.
Councilwoman McNamara.
Aye.
Councilman Iacili.
Yes.
Councilman Powell.
Yes.
Town Board Resolution 2025-171, bond authorization for $2,400,000 for reconstruction of town roads.
Second.
Supervisor Moore,
Aye.
Councilwoman McNamara.
Aye.
Councilman Iacili.
Yes.
Councilman Powell.
Aye.
Town Board Resolution 2025-172, bond authorization of $3 million for the construction of a new town activity center at 393 Mill Road in West Hampton.
Second.
Supervisor Moore,
It's not West Hampton Beach, it's West Hampton. It's over the line. What's that? It's not West Hampton Beach, it's West Hampton.
Yeah, it's past the school. And it's, and the, and I saw the, plans, it's looking very good again.
Dorothy, I can correct this.
It's update.
Right?
Yes,
Okay.
you should.
Just want to make sure, because it's bonds. I want
West of Onek Lane is the Onek Road.
She said-
You know, I mean, the address is there, 292. I think we can, but I will email you again, just.
There's conversation happening off the mic. It should be. There should, okay.
Okay. Supervisor Moore,
As amended?
as the,
Are we voting to amend?
we're amending.
Yes, we should, I believe we should,
Yes, we
because it
are.
is West Hampton.
It is West Hampton, I know
So
that for
we
sure.
should amend, yes.
My kids went to school with. Okay, so, do you want to make an
I'll
amendment?
second to amend.
So, all in favor of amending?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, so, as amended, the bond resolution of $3 million for the construction of the new town activity center at 393 Mill Road in West Hampton.
Same second.
Second.
Okay. Supervisor Moore,
Aye.
Councilwoman McNamara,
Aye.
Councilman Iacili,
Yes.
Councilman Powell. We
Yes.
made it through.
Thank you. Town Board Resolution 2025-173. This is the historic landmark designation of the site recognized as the Theophilus A. Brower Jr. Pine Walled Park, located at 59 Montauk Highway in West Hampton.
Second, and I'd like to co-sponsor.
Ditto.
Myself too.
Okay.
All in favor?
Aye. Town Board Resolution 174 of 2025, co-sponsored with Supervisor Moore and Councilman Pell. Waive showmobile fees for the Hampton Bays Hibernians.
Second.
Hibernians. Hibernians.
All in favor?
Sorry. been a long day.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Town Board Resolution 175 of 2025, release of maintenance bond in connection with Shinnecock Hills Golf Club Pro Shop.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Town Board Resolution 2025-177 to appoint Razvan Palagita to
One more, 176.
Oh, all right. I didn't see that one. Town Board Resolution 2025-176 to terminate employee in the Public Safety Department.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Town Board Resolution 2025-177 to appoint Razvan Palagita to the guard position in Public Safety.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Town Board Resolution 2025-178 to accept the resignation of Thomas Kreinborg, Public Safety Dispatcher in the Police Department.
Second.
Second.
Sadly.
I'm gonna miss him.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Town Board Resolution 2025-179 to appoint Christy Vanilio to Public Safety Dispatcher 1 in the Police Department.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Town Board Resolution 2025-180 to appoint Kelly Clancy to Public Safety Dispatcher 1 in the Police Department.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Town Board Resolution 2025-181 to appoint Kelly Dwyer Halb to Senior Citizen Center Manager in Senior Services.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Town Board Resolution 2025-182 to appoint William Rayner to Heavy Equipment Operator in Waste Management.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Town Board Resolution 2025-183, resolution to appoint a delegate to the New York State Association of Towns 2025 Annual Meeting and Training School.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Does that mean you're there for an extra day?
Yeah, it's the morning of.
Thank you for volunteering.
Yes.
Welcome. Town Board Resolution 184 of 2025, authorize Fire Marshals Christian Hansen and Ryan White to attend the International Association of Arson Investigators International Training Conference in Atlantic City, New Jersey, April 8th to the 9th, 2025.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Town Board Resolution 185 of 2025, authorizing Youth Bureau staff to attend the Association of New York State Youth Bureaus 2025 Annual Youth Leadership Forum.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Town Board Resolution 2025-186, co-sponsored by the entire board. Public hearing, Chapter 261, to consider the enforcement action at 40 West Montauk Highway in Hampton Bays, New York.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
That'll be on February 11th.
Town Board Resolution 187 of 2025, co-sponsored with Councilman Pell. Notice of public hearing to consider amending Town Code Chapter 312, amending parking time limited in designated locations regulations on a portion of Corwith Avenue, Bridgehampton.
We're having a work session on that.
I think so.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Town Board Resolution 188 of 2025. This is a notice of public hearing to consider amending Town Code Chapter 312, amending and adding parking prohibited in designated locations regulations on a portion of Lake Avenue, County Road 63 of Northampton.
Second.
All in favor?
And again,
Aye.
I did actually give you correspondence pertaining to this, Supervisor,
Yes,
from
and
the county.
It's on for a work session, and Janice is going to attach the correspondence to the notice so that we'll all have it.
Wonderful. Town Board Resolution 189 of 2025, co-sponsored with Councilman Pell. This is a notice of public hearing for local law amending Section 123-21 of the Southampton Town Code entitled Penalties for Offenses in order to increase minimum penalties for violating stop work orders. We did have a work session on this
Ryan is here.
with Ryan and Sean, yeah,
Mhm.
co-sponsored with Councilman Pell.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Town Board Resolution 2025-190. This is a very similar law, just follows along the same premise. Notice of public hearing for a local law amending Section 229-9 of the Southampton Town Code entitled Penalties for Offenses, Additional Remedies, in order to set minimum fines for conviction of violating a stop order issued by the Natural Resources Director. Again, raising the fees of the minimum fines of violators of stop work orders.
Second. And also, can you add me as co-sponsor, please?
All in favor?
Aye. Town Board Resolution 191 of 2025, road review application for 4 Birch Street, LLC, Suffolk County tax map as indicated, situate at East Quogue is accepted.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. Town Board Resolution 192 of 2025, road review application for 20 Luther Drive, LLC, Suffolk County tax map as indicated, situate at Watermill is accepted.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, and now we have the 6 walk-ons. Bill, yours is first.
Town Board Resolution 48803, authorize the purchase of road salt and treated salt and emergency standby road salt from New York State OGS contract with Atlantic Salt.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Town Board Resolution ID number 48811 to authorize the purchase of door and closure repairs with Eastern Door and Hardware Inc. using Suffolk County contract.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Town Board Resolution ID number 48827, which is bond authorization of $100,000 for the design and construction of a new rifle range facility.
Second.
Okay.
All in favor?
Supervisor Moore?
Aye.
Councilwoman McNamara?
Aye.
Councilman Iacilli?
Yes.
Councilman Pell?
Yes.
Town
And
Board
thank
Resolution.
Kathleen for, sorry,
Thank you, Kathleen.
I just wanted to thank
Oh, yeah,
Kathleen
she
for-
jumped right on it.
Yes.
Town Board Resolution ID number 48833 to approve the warrant.
Second.
Number 2. All in favor?
Aye.
Town Board Resolution ID number 48836 to schedule issue a notice of public hearing for amendments to Chapter 123-39.3 entitled Battery Energy Storage Systems as it relates to building and electrical permit requirements.
Second, and I'd like to co-sponsor.
Myself too.
All in favor?
Aye.
Town Board Resolution ID number 48837 to authorize the supervisor to execute any and all documents pertaining to the New York CARES Up grant for resiliency and wellness planning grants for New York State Uniformed Personnel Organization.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Well, we did it. That was
Yes.
a long one. We made it. All right, well, if no one has anything else, then I move to close the meeting.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thanks, everyone.